So when there's a tick in the top corner, does it tell us that it's live? I think we might be
We are
live.
live.
Oh shit!
The cold open has begun.
And I've sworn within the first 8 seconds, so
Oh
we're
no,
already demonetized. Oh no!
demonetized. Whatever. What is up, everybody? Everyone watching on Platoon's channel and mine. Appreciate you guys dropping in. This is the first episode of whatever you guys help us come up with the title for.
Yeah, names on a postcard because I'm terrible at naming anything. Really, it's one of the many reasons I shouldn't have children because they will be just yeah. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, name suggestions. Fire away, chat. Nothing inappropriate, please.
Yeah,
Because
nothing
we're
too
still,
crazy, but please do.
yeah,
But
we're not
we are.
Mr. Brown. We can't put wank in our thumbnail titles, for example. So
You'll
nothing
get
like that.
away with it if you're American, because we have no idea what the hell that was. Just FYI, everybody. But we are here to finally get this show off the ground that we have been discussing since August. And so here it is. Exciting stuff. And we are totally winging it. So if anything goes wrong, please let us know, because I'm oblivious a lot and I won't catch it. I don't know about this man here, but
Oh yeah,
we're.
all the time. But I like that the lead in there is we've been discussing this since August, and then it goes to, and so we've got nothing planned. So we're just going to roll with it and see what happens.
Just rolling with it. First topic, though, that I wanted to talk about was Shazam 2, because we both saw it over the weekend. We discussed it a little bit on Mr. Brown's channel. But I don't know. What do we got? 340 in the chat now. So I hated that movie. I think I went into it expecting bad because it had like a 50% rating at the time on Rotten Tomatoes. By the time I got in the theater and like 15 minutes in, I remember leaning over and just thinking, like, hey, this isn't so bad. This is really not too bad. I had a few chuckles. And then it all went downhill from there. It became the most generic superhero movie of superhero movies.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate the film. I don't think there was enough in it worth hating. It was just on the screen, and I found myself, as I frequently do with things that just aren't very good and aren't very bad either, just doing other things at the same time as watching it, which is always a good test. The Last of Us did roughly the same thing, which is not to say The Last of Us is the same quality as Shazam, but it has the same effects. I did not hate it. I didn't think there was anything in the film that I looked at and thought, yeah, this is contemptible or disgusting. It wasn't a Thor: Love and Thunder. It wasn't a She-Hulk. It was nothing like that. But it just wasn't really anything either. There was nothing positive about it. It was just vaguely charming in places, which is probably about where the bar is set now for an average film. I thought some of the performances were quite good, as we were talking on Mr. Brown's channel yesterday. I still don't know the character's name.
I
The
don't
kid
either.
with the curly-haired kid, he was quite good. He can act.
Yeah.
The main kid who plays Shazam when he isn't adult Shazam cannot act, so he's not so good. Yeah, so one or two good performances. I thought some of the shots were quite nice. Some of the effects weren't abysmal, maybe. Although I was watching it on a dodgy quality Indian cinema screen, so
I
might have
watched
just got
it in a
completely wrong.
near IMAX size screen. The effects were fine, and I think this is a perfect example of like, this was a movie that if came out last year would be the catalyst for why I even started YouTube, because it's just like, if this is the highest quality we get, which is just like, it's fine. It's just not good enough at that point. Because I had never left a theater in recent memory where I was like, man, I'm really glad that competently made film is finally over. I think I lasted the last 20 minutes. You can call every single thing that was going to happen, and spoils in the chat, but something does happen. I guess I won't spoil it too much, but you alluded to it last night. Something happens, and I was like, oh my God, they actually went for it. Okay. So this movie had some stakes, and then it's erased immediately. So even the one thing that could have gone right, they decided they pussied out, really.
Yeah, and it wasn't just to raise the stakes, but it was also the manner in which they raised the stakes. So,
Yeah.
I mean, are we allowed to spoil it? Does anyone really care if
Does
we spoil
anyone
the
in
end
the
of
chat give a
Shazam? It's
shit?
not as though it's leading anywhere. I think
Spoil it.
executive decision, we're going to spoil it. So the main character, Shazam kind of dies at the end, right at the end. But he doesn't, because obviously it's a superhero film, and it has to be cheerful. And the way they get back from that is he sacrifices himself, Everyone's really sad. He dies to save his family. It's actually kind of nice.
Boo-hoo.
And then they bury him up on not Mount Olympus, but somewhere like it. And
wherever that wizard
the
guy
war
is.
crimes music plays. So you know who's coming onto the screen right now for the first time in the entire film. World's been at threat through the entire film, but only now in the last scene does war crimes music play, and up appears Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman magics him back to life. The end. Everyone lives happily ever after. Which is just, it's a bit pathetic. If you're not I think the part of the problem is they don't know what they're doing with Shazam, so obviously, but they don't know if he's going to, we don't know at least, if he's going to be part of James Gunn's new expanded universe thing. If he's not going to be, kill him and leave him dead, because that's actually a really good, meaningful end for a character. He's died for values. That's lovely. If he is going to take part in the rest of James Gunn's plans, find a better way of bringing him back to life than magicking him back to life via Wonder Woman, who's in there for literally, I think it's about 15 seconds. She turns up, brings him back to life. He flirts with her, even though he's 17. It's always interesting to note what would have happened if the sexes had been reversed in this situation, by the way. But
yeah.
One of the kids, who's implied to be about 16, dates a 3,000-year-old Greek god, and the other one, who is not yet 18, flirts with Wonder Woman, and that's all fine. But yeah, reverse that. I don't think people would be quite so saccharine about that. So yeah, he flirts with her, and then she goes away, and that's the end of the film. So anyone who hasn't seen it in the chat, it's just been spoiled. But since it's a bit rotten anyway, I don't think it matters too much. You can't spoil the rotten.
And the actor who plays, I don't know. Well, I guess his technical name is Shazam, even though they all have to say Shazam or whatever. But he had posted on Twitter, he was arguing with some rando the other day that, because the rando was like, well, no one saw your movie because it doesn't matter in the long run because it's all getting rebooted. And he took literal childlike offense to it. James Gunn didn't say that. That's not what he said. You need to get out of the toxicity of like YouTube comments and all this shit. And then immediately this morning, it's just not 2 days later, I saw an article saying, talking about how that actor has spoken about how he's moving on from the role of Shazam.
Oh, yeah, he's going, is he?
I guess. I don't understand why, like, even if he is going to continue, like the character is going to continue in the new DCU, why are you getting mad at the poor PR job that Warner Brothers is doing about articulating that to people? And the director even too, I read another article this morning when prepping a little bit, was he had said that he saw the writing on the wall because of how many times this movie had been rescheduled. Mm-hmm. And so they had rescheduled it like, you know, whatever. A bunch of movies had been rescheduled because of the pandemic, but this one was shifted around a lot afterwards too. It was like bumped all the way to summer of this year and then moved back to December of last year and then shuffled to March release now. And he was saying that he's like, I don't care because I got paid all my money up front. They are clear. They wanted this movie to bomb. I just don't understand how that could be a reality. Like, why would any studio want their movie to purposefully bomb? I mean, they cut Batwoman out for a reason.
Or was it Batgirl? Batwoman was the CW one that somehow went for three seasons. But Batgirl they cut. Yeah, I don't tend to put much stock in those arguments for the studio deliberately wanted it to bomb. If that was the case, they would have released Batgirl. And I wish that they had, because that sounds like an incredible film. But I can't see why they would have wanted this film to bomb, but it exists in this sort of netherworld because of the James Gunn plans, and no one's sure where the DCEU is going. It's a little bit like Ant-Man in that respect. It's a light touch comic relief film, which is expected to anchor down a major slot in the release schedule without any stakes attached to it, and without a character who's really deserving of those stakes or that place in the release schedule. No one really knows what's happening with it, and the audience doesn't exactly look at DC's slate of films and pick out Shazam as the one they want to go and see this year. So I think the bombing is entirely incidental or accidental. It just bombed because it wasn't very good and nobody cares about Shazam.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the first movie, right?
No, I did think about going and watching it, and then I realized that I don't care, so I didn't.
You don't need to. Honestly, the second movie was really not that far from the quality of the first one, because the first one did have some charm and stuff. But I think at the time that one gets up such high ratings because all of DC, like, nothing good had come out. So everyone was again kind of giving a movie that was okay, huge free pass. And then the second one comes out and it's a pretty much the same quality, and it gets to like a 50%, and no one really goes to see it. I don't
That
know.
would be an interesting comparison to make, I think, because sorry, give me 2 seconds.
Sure. I'll hold down the fort. He lives in the UK, so it's probably like some ghosts or something. I would imagine, like some old Victorian boy knocking. Let's see what the chat has to say. I saw something in here that someone said. Vex, is there a financial incentive to writing off the incentive, like how you can write certain business expense off and such? That's a good question. I mean, that's why they wrote off Batgirl the movie. I do not know if I have no clue how that's going to work if they release the movie. I mean, it's going to lose money. It was apparently, hey, Little Platoon turned into me. It was apparently, made for like 120 to 150 million dollars, but you're also talking about 100 million dollars in marketing. So you're looking at probably a 500 million dollar break point, maybe 400 if you're lucky. So yeah, it's going to be a financial bomb, because even in the United States, a $30 million opening, say it slides 50-60% next week, you're looking at easily like 100 $150 million loss. Chat, let's see. Dr. Dave, the first Shazam was enjoyable enough on a shallow throwaway kind of thing. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Hey, you got that license for this podcast? Picard's so cynic. What's shaking, man? Not much. Let's see. I think we had a super chat too. I don't want to miss that. Mr. Hostman Socrates, or Hostman Kotaku, for $5 says, observation, Master, there is a horde of useless meatbags on your chat. Query, shall I engage assassination protocols? If they are, aren't you a mod, sir? Mod away. Spectre Von Baron for $10. I'll have to bring this back up for him whenever he returns. But Platoon, have you perhaps had a chance to see Puss in Boots: The Last Wish? I feel like it's a good example of a rare modern film that doesn't undercut its action or heartfelt moments with vapid jokes. I cannot speak for him. I will make sure to save that so he can see it when he gets back. As far as I'm concerned, I had no idea about that. I hated the Shrek franchise, so when it started getting praised, I was pleasantly surprised. Very shocked about that. Andy Mouse, Platoon gone to make some tea. Mm-hmm. Cannoli Sasquatch. I did not like the first Shazam, so seeing this sequel fail this bad isn't surprising. I honestly thought it was okay. I thought it was pretty okay. Liam Fibian, thoughts on Tom Cruise on the Flash movie being the best superhero movie? Did he say that in the quote? I didn't even know that. I saw the article saying that he saw it, and it was, he cold called the director to praise it, and that it was exactly like what movies need right now, which is exactly what we were saying about Top Gun last year. But in any case, genuinely excited for that movie, and I had no desire to see it at all. DC is, besides Batman, not really my bag, and then that trailer dropped and it just got me. Anthony says Puss will get you. Oh, gotcha. Platoon will return. Just insane timing for what's occurring right now. So let's see. Philosophical Pickle, the Cynic is my biological father. I expect 18 years of back child support coming my way soon. Let's see. David A. Craven. It's rare for sequels to get better. Most franchises just slowly die like radioactive waste. I agree. However, so far, it looks like John Wick that series might jump that. What did you think about the Louder and Prouder reboot? Don't know about that one. Platoon is in the Shadow Realm. He will return. Hostman again for $5, sir. Statement HK47, ready to engage in unadulterated violence against poor films, including Emo Bat. Oh, that's an attack on me. This is an attack on me. Jose Gonzalez. I was excited for Shazam 1. Billy Batson is my favorite DC character. I have never heard anyone say that before. But they made Shazam too excited and way more energetic than his kid counterpart. That's actually a really good observation. There's a lot of good, but also bad in there. Yeah, it is strange. The whatever 17, 18-year-old Billy Batson that ends up becoming Shazam. He certainly does act more mature than Shazam himself. It's when he is Shazam that he acts more like a child. That's hilarious. Marco, Jenna. I'm sorry, I'm not going to pronounce your name right. Emo Bat. So the one with the Twilight actor. Yeah, that one. Yeah. Percy Star 7. Again, as crap as Snyder was, at least he took himself seriously and didn't inject unwanted cringy jokes every second. Yeah, he just injected unwanted shitty fucking slow-mo every 2 seconds. Hostman, did I send you 2 super chats? Maybe. I have no clue because we have both streams going on both channels. So it's going to combine. What we're looking at is combination chat of both streams. I have no idea where either one of these are coming from. So also, I just want to say that whatever's going on with Platoon right now is hilariously bad timing, all things considered, because it took us a year to get this show going, and then 10 minutes deep, he had to eject for a few. But we'll keep it riding. We'll keep it riding. Also, to make things easier, I wanted to send out a thing. Anyone in the chat who has a channel that would like to get on the show, feel free to let us know. I will gladly send out a link. You can hop in. You can chat with us. And it's kind of probably be like first come, first serve. And hopefully us, meaning yes, both of us. Oh, look at this man. He's got the glasses.
No, how do I
on.
get rid of those? That's not supposed to have happened. There we go. Oh no, now I'm wearing a monocle. That's even worse. That's okay, fair enough.
I already sent out the invite because I didn't know how long you were going to be gone.
Yeah, so no, minor family grandparent stroke emergency, but I'm not required for this apparently, so it's all good. Back to
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Nothing I can do.
All right. Because I was saying no offense taken to anyone, I'm sure, if you had a family emergency. My goodness. But no, I right before you hopped in, I let the chat know that if anyone has a channel, you can let us know, and kind of a first come first serve thing. But we can see if we can get people in and out if you'd like to join the show. So
yeah, as long as you don't do a Gavin McInnes and just turn up and piss on your desk, then
yeah.
Otherwise, you will have a one invitation only, and then if you piss on your desk, you're never coming back.
There are 2 of us too, so someone will do a little digging before you get on the show. But where were we? Shazam. Shazam 2. And, this leads right into the next topic, though, which would be superhero box office.
Yes.
I have
Do
no
you have
idea.
The figures up for Shazam?
I know what the figures are for the weekend, but let me pull it up for worldwide. I don't know what is even considered a success when it comes to box office over in the UK. I always just go by domestic and what the worldwide is.
I think, to be honest, we usually go by the American box office.
Fair enough. All right. Its worldwide is sitting at 65 million. So its domestic and international split is only 30 and 35. For most superhero movies, box office analysis used to be a hobby of mine. It was just another thing that I enjoyed doing when it came to knowledge of movies. A lot of these films typically are now having a 60-40 split. So 60% when it comes to worldwide and 40% when it's domestic. So this isn't even splitting well. It's gonna bomb. It is a bomb.
It is already a bomb. So you've got the initial cost of production, which is what? That's 100 and something million.
Yeah, I
And
think it's
then
like between 120 and 150.
and then you have marketing on top of that, which is going to
Easily
be
100.
probably around that. Yes.
Yeah.
And then you have distribution, and then the studio only gets a cut of whatever comes back from the box office. So it could potentially be losing lots, like tens, if not a couple, like 100 million would be a
Yeah,
pretty significant bomb.
that was my estimation, probably like 100 to 110 million dollar loss. And because typically you got to do double at the box office, because in domestic, I believe studios can take, like, it kind of goes on a scale. So the first couple weekends is when the studio takes most of its money, which is also when most movies make most of their money. So they really do a good job of screwing over movie theaters that way. But they can take, like, a company like Disney can take upwards of 70% of the box office, which is nuts. And then, that's why you get the massive prices when it comes to, popcorn, soda, and all that jazz, because that's how they actually make their money. So as it's going, like, it probably evens out, averages out to like 50% they take from ticket sales domestic, and then international, they're only getting like 30% of every ticket sale. So that's like, yes, international adds to the box office, but all the same, a lot of those numbers, especially when all those films were hitting $1 billion before the pandemic, a lot of that's vanity numbers, just to look good. So yeah, $110 million loss for this one coming right up.
And I want to say good, although because again of the James Gunn situation, it would be nicer if this had been a Marvel film. I know Ant-Man is not making money.
No, that's going to lose 100 too.
Is that losing as much? I hadn't kept up with the figures on that one, because
Yeah.
that's sort of the one you want to really see bomb. DC has already realized it needs a change of direction, and so in a way, it's an unuseful bomb if Shazam just tanks, because, well, they've already made the change. What does it really matter, except that the studio now has less money to spend on whatever his vision happens to be. Whereas with Marvel, you do kind of need a big bomb to finally persuade Disney that the direction they've been going since the beginning of Phase 4, actually, arguably, the direction they've been going in since Endgame. In fact, no, the decision they've been going in since Captain Marvel has been the wrong one. So a nice big healthy bomb under Disney headquarters, metaphorically, would be helpful. But they are both bombing, which is perhaps kind of interesting, because it does sort of beg the question: are these isolated instances? Was it Lenin's things that, like, once is a coincidence? Once is an incident, twice might be a coincidence, three times is a pattern. We're on twice, so it could still be coincidental. The last two superhero films have effectively tanked. But if it's not just coincidental, if it actually is indicative of something else, is it that we are all basically bored and tired of superheroes as a genre now?
It's certainly getting there, because, like, yeah, these ones outright bombed, but this is just a sliding scale pattern. Because look at last year, Doctor Strange 2 couldn't even crack $1 billion when it was on its way to. It opened huge, domestic and worldwide, so there was no reason why that movie shouldn't have hit $1 billion, and it couldn't even do that because of the poor quality and word of mouth. And then like, no, She-Hulk was not a movie release, but that's the point of all those movies. They want them to affect, or those TV shows, they want to affect the movies. They want it to all be part of the same universe. Well, when you have a shitty TV show, it's going to negatively impact the IP as a whole, which includes the movies, which is where you make most of your money from. Black Panther, I think that crested like 800 million. Thor: Love and Thunder couldn't even break that. And, like, yes, you can remove China from all that stuff, but again, the Chinese government takes so much money from when movies go there. It's, again, like, kind of like vanity numbers. So it removed like the 100 million it might have gotten from that or whatever, and you're still left with a sliding scale when it comes to box office receipts. And now you're starting to get the results of this stuff. It truly feels like superhero fatigue, but all at the same time, it could very well be that people just don't like shitty products.
Yeah, and I think I see that argument and understand that argument. Ultimately, you've got the entire history of Marvel Comics to play with, as Kevin Feige himself has said. You've got brilliant stories. All you would really need to do is adapt to those, rather than try and, either make new comics and adapt them, or just create nonsense, which is what they're doing. But I think the fatigue point goes a little bit deeper because it's not just that that are tired of badly written product. There must be a reason behind the scenes for badly written product to exist in the first place. And fatigue is as much a writing and studio thing as it is an audience thing. We say we're tired of bad writing, but there must be an essential tiredness, I think, that's coming in, which creates the bad writing to begin with. So it's one thing, and then there's the interesting question of, how much agendas lead these things. Why, if you've got the entire history of Marvel Comics to play with, would you have adapted America Chavez or Riri Williams onto the screen, who are like new characters whose own comics runs, as far as I understand, bombed, and in some cases bombed more than once. Yeah, so it's I think probably a combination of fatigue in the studio and agenda in studio doesn't tend to produce particularly well-written scripts. But can anything be done to change that, except not going to see the films? Maybe they will learn the lesson from their repeated underperformance.
They could, because I think what happened here was Marvel was too big for its britches, and it really thought that people would just go see anything because of the logo. And maybe that was true for it. There's some goodwill, of course, when it comes to massive IPs. When Endgame opens to $357 million domestic, makes $2.5 billion. Yeah, you're going to get a little goodwill. But audiences can be fickle, and rightfully so, because we don't owe you $1. We don't owe you anything. You're trying to entertain us as a movie studio. So, I could go on a tangent about blaming the fans there easily enough. But all the same, they thought that they could just ride on the Marvel logo, and no, we want a good product. We don't care that it says Marvel. It's nice if it says Marvel, because for a while that meant a bar of quality, but over 2 years you've shown us that that's not there anymore. So why are we going to show up?
Good question. I do wonder as well from the fans' perspective, because I think we were talking about some of the marketing on Mr. Brown's channel yesterday, and someone mentioned that they'd seen the posters up for, I think it was Black Adam, over all the buses in London and on the tube.
Oh, yeah.
It sort of got me thinking, I haven't been to London, thankfully, for a little while, but if I'm a normie wandering around in the streets, looking at all the adverts for all the films that are coming out, back in the day, I could look up an advert and I could see Iron Man, and I would know who that was.
Yeah.
Or I could see Captain America, and I'd probably know who that was as well. If you're now wandering around the streets of London, and you're being bombarded with adverts for characters like Shazam, Black Adam, what's her name, T'Challa's sister in Black Panther, Shuri, that's the one.
Shuri, whatever.
Don't call me Shuri. You're seeing all of these, let's be charitable, C-tier characters, and it sort of contributes to this general miasma of superhero-dom. All you're seeing is just, oh, that's another superhero film that's out. You're not saying, oh, look, there's another Iron Man film that's coming out anymore. These things sort of just blend in together if you walk past them too much. I don't think that probably helps at this fatigue point either. If you've run out of your top tier of characters and you've not bothered to actually restock the roster with people who are iconic, and there are plenty of iconic characters you could have done with that, but they haven't, then what are people really gonna take away from all of these adverts? It's just all the films are superheroes. Are we not a little bit tired of superheroes? I've suddenly realized I have to go shopping for something else rather than go and see that Ant-Man thing that's coming out, because my kid wants to go, but I don't love them that much. So yeah, it's just fatigue. I think fatigue is more than just bad writing. Fatigue is more even than just agendas in studios. I think it is just this, it's saturation. What other stories are there to tell? Are superheroes the only medium now by which we're allowed to tell stories? No, but that seems to be the way cinemas are operating at the moment. I'm kind of bored of superhero films. I'd like to see a good one. I would like to see a good one, but I am kind of bored of them overall as a meta.
I mean, the Batman came out last year.
Was that only last year?
It was 1 year ago.
It was such a long film that it just feels like longer.
Yeah.
But
no, and the thing is too, like, as someone pointed out, that Spider-Man No Way Home proves that, maybe it's not superhero fatigue. I lost the comment. That was a good one though. But again, that was also, the pandemic happened, so no Marvel product came out that entire year. And then I kind of feel bad and I kind of don't, because again, like, I don't owe them anything. But all at the same time, the stuff that was supposed to come out during the pandemic probably would have spread this stuff out a little more. It wouldn't have improved the quality, but it wouldn't have just been this overabundance of bullshit all in like one
No,
calendar year.
I've heard that argument a few times. Just in the last week or so, I've heard this argument pop up in my comment section. It's like, you do realize there's a pandemic on, right? It's like, the pandemic is to blame for the poor quality of movies. And no, like,
No.
the pandemic made it very difficult to film. The pandemic, wearing a mask doesn't change your ability to write characters. Like, wearing a mask doesn't stop you, putting pen to page or fingers to keyboard and typing a script that makes sense. So you can forgive the pandemic. Sorry, you can't forgive the pandemic, but you can understand the pandemic's impact on certain filming problems that they might have had. Delayed release schedules, slightly overuse of CGI, maybe clunky performances with actors in different rooms where they otherwise would have been together. That's all fine, but that's mechanical problems. That's what the pandemic impacts. But the main problem with all of these superhero films at the moment isn't mechanical, although, the overuse of CGI is a huge problem. But the main problem is the writing. The writing wasn't impacted by the pandemic. I did all of my writing during the pandemic. I wrote loads during the pandemic, and most of it was better than the stuff I did before the pandemic. It's not an excuse, and it's weird to see people trotting it out as though it were an excuse. Because the other aspect of that is, okay, let's just accept for the sake of argument that these films are bad because of the pandemic. Let's say that Ant-Man was terribly written because lockdown. Doesn't make sense, but let's accept it for the sake of argument. If you're a studio and you're minded to put out a good film, and you actually take your product seriously, and you respect the universe you've been building and your fans, if you've got a choice between putting out a film this year and it being shit because of the pandemic, or putting out a film in a year and it being better after the pandemic, you've taken the time to make sure it was right, which do you do? It's not even an excuse accepting for the sake of argument that the pandemic impacts writing, because they're still choosing to put out subpar products knowing that they are subpar and hoping that shills in comment sections on YouTube will say, no offense to our chat, because our chat's way too lovely for that, but shills in comment sections on YouTube who will turn up and say, well, the pandemic just made it impossible to film. Well, no, it didn't. But if it did, then don't film during that year. Wait a year, put out something better.
And good movies were filmed during that anyway. So I hate that excuse. Like, I don't think in those instances the argument is, well, those are just exceptions. Like, in general, like there's always been, no matter how much product is put out, generally movies that year or TV shows that year, like 90% of them probably aren't very good. So it's just there's no real excuse for why something is bad when you actually have more fucking time to make it. I just don't, because when it comes to writing, when it comes to the acting, those things matter more for your typical viewer and for me, like more than anything. So good story and good acting can usually make up for bad special effects. So if they couldn't film outside for real and they had to do it on a green screen every time, they did that with Spider-Man No Way Home. You could notice it a few times, but really that wasn't even the point. That wasn't anything offensive to anybody because the movie was actually genuinely enjoyable. And it's interesting too that that's an MCU connected movie, but it was made by Sony Studios. So this is clearly like it's a studio by studio basis, and Disney is the biggest offender of this shit.
It is, but it's also peculiar because nothing else that Sony has done with its attempted Spider-Verse has been any good as far as I'm aware. I mean, it's not as though Venom was up to the same quality as No Way Home. Yeah. I don't even know what the current state of their attempted Spider-Verse is, but it was a phenomenon because it was unique both to Marvel and to Sony Pictures. Both of them produced a film which bucked the trend. And so I don't think it's as simple either as saying that it's good because it was Sony, not Marvel and Disney, because everything else Sony's done has been shit. So what is the reason?
It might be a matter of circumstance because the entire story wouldn't even have happened if it hadn't been for the contract negotiations that they had to go through. Because of the fact that they have to share, they don't have to, they choose to share the IP of Spider-Man. That brought along the ushering in the idea of the multiverse with Spider-Man No Way Home. At least through cinema. I know they started with Loki, but like it really got introduced to everyone through Spider-Man because whatever. If people liked Loki, well, guess what? Not a lot of people really watched it, at least in comparison to Spider-Man No Way Home.
And we were told that we didn't have to. We were explicitly told you don't have to watch the Disney Plus shows to understand or to enjoy the cinematic releases, which is my excuse for not watching Loki because there are only so many hours left in my life. and I don't want to spend them watching Loki. So the fact that they introduce Kang in Loki is irrelevant to the Kang they introduce in Quantumania. If they want to introduce him into the mainline MCU, fulfill your promise. I shouldn't have to watch Loki to understand. So there is that. And then, but I'm trying to think, because the multiverse thing works really well or works as well as it probably can in No Way Home. I think we're, again, talking about this on Browns yesterday, is that, if you're going to do a multiverse, and I don't generally think that you should, but if you are going to do a multiverse, what you need to do is to make those stakes very, very local, because you can't comprehend an infinite multiverse. And No Way Home did that very effectively. No Way Home introduces this multiverse with local stakes in a character we all understand. So we understand what his loss is, and we understand what his victory conditions are. We understand what his sacrifice entails in a way that we don't from something like Quantumania or Kang's revealed plan. So in a way, No Way Home is useful not just because it's the only good Phase 4 film, but also because it shows that you can do multiversal introductions quite well. And for some reason, between those films, they just forgot about that entirely. And they've now gone for the opposite approach, which is just tell everyone incomprehensible gobbledygook about multiverses, and something will land, something will stick in place.
That's precisely what I was saying in my Ant-Man review. That's where I was talking about, like, this has no stakes, and the only way to properly do such a gargantuan story that is a multiverse story is to give us main characters and ground it that way. It seems like they kind of wanted to in Ant-Man 3, but like it was written so poorly and so cringy. Like when Ant-Man's standing, or Giant Man is standing yelling for Kang and saying he took his daughter, like, is that supposed to be the thing that's drawing us in? Like, oh, you stole my activist daughter. I would be thanking him. But
please just send her away.
Take her, bro.
I don't want nothing to do with it. This person who is an activist who gets arrested for assaulting police people because of homelessness in San Francisco, and then who has the gall to tell me, who saved half the universe, that I don't do anything for the world anymore. Whereas she protests against policemen, so she's obviously much more morally upstanding than me, Ant-Man, who saved the fucking universe. Yeah, take her away. Leave her down in the quantum realm. Or better yet, Kang's threat, wasn't it, was that he would kill her repeatedly throughout eternity. Depending on how pissed off I was as Ant-Man, I might not be opposed to that, even though it doesn't actually make sense within the context of the film, because the film clearly established that Kang was out of time in the quantum realm, which is why he was stuck. Therefore, he couldn't have made her die repeatedly in time because he's not in it. Anyway, that film makes no sense, but we don't need to go back through that.
No, we don't necessarily. I could bitch about her for a while, too. I just need to get this out then. Okay, so you're talking to an Avenger who saved the world and helped save it multiple times, and now he's just chilling, and he's a best-selling author and probably making millions of dollars that way and settling into a nice life. And that's not enough for you, said the activist who's never accomplished anything in her life. Okay. Moving on. Then going right into the next part of it. Is there anything that will reverse this trend?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because I slightly anticipated it. So I've got up the list of
right.
Phase
you
5
have a
releases.
list.
I have
Okay,
a list.
Let's do this.
This is everything that's coming out in Phase 5. So stop me if you think any of these will bring Marvel back up to the heights of Infinity War. So we've had Ant-Man and the Wasp, and I think the answer to that is going to be no.
No.
Secret Invasion on Disney Plus in spring 2023.
I don't think it's going to do anything. I think it might have the potential to not be awful. It's starring Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, but he was in Deep Blue Sea.
You don't like Deep Blue Sea?
I mean, as an enjoyable bad film, like it's a funny shit film. Yeah,
it's a
I like it, but not
movie.
because it's good.
I mean,
it's just
so.
And also, he gets killed midway through his speech by
which is fucking
CGI
awesome.
shark.
Yeah, but think of it this way: She-Hulk is bad and not even enjoyable. If Secret Invasion is at least bad and enjoyable,
True.
Maybe I'm just walking away because I'm sad and I want some semblance of a win.
So our hopes at the moment are pinned on it could be so bad it's good.
Yeah, because of Samuel L. Jackson. Yeah.
The only one I think probably chat might agree, the only one I've ever heard cited as a reason to be excited for this phase is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Yes, but I don't think that can necessarily like reverse anyone's feeling towards the MCU as a whole. It almost feels like this is its own thing wrapping up, not like, and it is, because it's like we're apparently not going to see the Guardians anymore. So, it's not like this is going to push them into trajectory of what they're going to do during Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. This is them wrapping it up. So if this is good, it's like a self-contained thing. It's not necessarily, it's not going to save the MCU.
Yeah, you can't really build. Well, it's hard to see how you can build anything from it if it's the ultimate sort of the end point of their story as opposed to the beginning of one. Echo. I don't even know what that is. So can anyone enlighten me? What the hell is an Echo?
I have no idea. I thought I saw the chick who plays Rosa in Brooklyn Nine-Nine was playing her, and I got excited, and then someone told me it's not. So now I don't give a shit.
A friend of mine came around at the weekend, and we were playing Sega Mega Drive games, which is fun because I don't think either of us were actually alive when most of those came out. But there was an Echo the Dolphin game on Sega. I liked that. That was fun.
So Echo is adjacent
a dolphin
to Daredevil?
fighting aliens. Then I might actually watch the show. Then we have Loki season 2.
I think people will lap that one up if it's of the same quality as the last one. I think general audiences like that one.
Do they?
I think people with any semblance of a critical eye probably thought it was bad. But
Sorry, anyone in the chat who likes Loki, you have no semblance of a critical eye.
But all the same, I think general audiences kind of liked it. And then it started going downhill from there, as far as the TV shows go.
Yeah, well, yeah. No, wait, didn't Loki come out after The Falcon and the Winter Soldier? So it was already
last.
I've actually completely lost track of when these things came out. I thought Loki was afterwards, but I could be wrong.
It's so weird because when the MCU was hot, like really hot, and I had been waiting my whole life for superhero movies, there was never a thought in my mind that I'd miss anything related to the MCU, and I haven't watched like half of those shows because fuck that. I'm all set.
So my personal shout for the thing that will save the MCU from itself is coming out on the 28th of July, apparently this year, unless it's delayed again, and that is the Marvels.
Oh, that was delayed till November.
Oh, is this outdated? I am going from the Radio Times, in which case any number of these products could have been shelved by this point. So, yeah, the Marvels will come out at some point. I don't think I can even sarcastically say that I think this will save the MCU because it's the Marvels. So
could this be so bad it's good?
Theoretically, I do enjoy bad films.
I do too.
I also enjoy just terrible films because they're fun to review. But I'm not sure. I'm prioritizing my channel growth versus people enjoying the MCU. Probably the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the YouTuber in that particular instance. Then we have Blade. Is that still happening?
Apparently, there is some major controversy around this. Like, there's always been anyway, but it's heating up recently again. And I think it's over the fact that they really are pushing for PG-13. The star Mahershala Ali is not satisfied with that. I don't think anyone is satisfied with that. That character is so fucking badass. He needs an R-rated movie, and just don't even give it to us. Like, if you're going to give Deadpool an R-rated movie, why wouldn't you give Blade one? He's the character that needs that kind of film. So just don't even make the movie. I think that's a movie that is guaranteed to be watched. And if it's perceived negatively, the studio will claim racism, even though everyone loves the original Blade.
I'm pretty sure for reasons to do with Wakanda, we're supposed to forget that the original Blade exists. So Blade is actually the second black-led superhero film, as opposed to the first, which it was. Yeah. But the first was, of course, Black Panther, because T'Challa.
Right.
Speaking of Wakanda, Ironheart, is that still happening?
I heard that is indefinitely delayed.
I hope so. That would be nice.
That would be great.
Covenant of Chaos then comes out, allegedly, unless that's been indefinitely delayed as well. I think this list is very outdated because I'm sure half of the things that I'm reading here don't exist anymore. But that's how studios work in the year 2023.
I think it was all very recent that all of this shit was postponed. It was right around it was the weekend Ant-Man 3 came out when all this stuff shook up. Oh,
Yes, because there was the announcement, wasn't there, from Disney Plus when
yeah.
they announced they'd lost a lot of subscribers, although lots of that had to do with actually them just doing away with Indian cricket rights. So they lost about 2 million Indian subscribers, which was not often reported when people were talking about it tanking. But the quote attached to it, which I thought was much more fun, was that we're now going to focus on quality over quantity, which is a tacit acknowledgement by Disney that their quantity has been awful. So, and has sacrificed quality. So, well done. You spoke the quiet part out loud.
And that's something that is, how can anyone, that's like a political move. The entire time all these things are coming out, they're just like, no, it's awesome. It's great. You're just racist. You're just misogynist. That's the only reason. And then they're firing everyone in the back and be like, fuck, we need to do something else. This is all shit.
Yes. So Agatha Coven of Chaos, I'm going to say, won't save the MCU.
No.
Daredevil Born Again.
With the information that's being leaked out about it, I don't think anyone trusts anybody with that product anymore. I think when he was featured in Spider-Man No Way Home, the elevation of everyone's excitement just skyrocketed, myself included. And then the rest of the MCU happened last year. And now I don't trust what they're going to do with Daredevil. I don't trust what they're going to do with X-Men or anything like that either. A lot of the information leaking out about that is, well, they didn't even hire back two of the main actors. So this seems like it's going to probably be a watered down Daredevil. I'm not even sure if it's technically the same Daredevil.
I understood, and I could have been wrong about this because I've never really followed it, but I understood it's kind of a soft reboot of the Netflix one, which I understand was quite popular. And this
it was really good. I liked it. Yeah.
And this is sort of semi-replacing it, so it's not a direct follow-on, but it's also not discarding everything that it did, because it's nice when you go into a film series or a TV series and you don't understand which of the bits you've seen are actually relevant and which have just been discarded completely. I like it when I don't know these things, especially in on-running series like Daredevil. Then we have, finally, the last two. We are coming to the end of what this place tells me is the slate for Phase 5, but will have changed by the time I finish the sentence. We've got Captain America New World Order and the Thunderbolts.
Captain America New World Order is going to be shit.
Okay. Bold prediction.
I say this because I hated Sam Wilson's run as Captain America in the comic books. And again, this is all this bullshit they're doing. It was during the era of the comic books I think it was called All New, All Different Marvel. And it's almost like everything that's happening on the screen is just happening in a much larger fashion because movies are so much bigger than the comic books were. But all of this controversy, all this bullshit was going on in the comics at the time too. Every single main character was replaced with, a race swapped counterpart of of some sort. Some worked, some did not, which also destroys any criticism of saying someone's racist or misogynist because of their dislikes of the characters. Because people enjoy Miles Morales because he was not just taking the mantle of Peter Parker. He was his own character. Yes, he is a derivative of Peter, obviously, but hey, at least they made his own fucking character. Versus them making an Asian Hulk, handing the shield over to Sam Wilson, and just having a hand-me-down Captain America in bland-ass stories. It's the exact same thing that's going to happen here. There's absolutely no reason why, if it didn't work in the comics, why it's somehow now going to work in movies. It's just not going to happen.
I do like, though, that in the last scene in which we saw him, he was telling a senator to do better. In other words, saying, government, you get involved. And in his next installment, there's a new world order, which you can make lots of jokes about, and I'm sure the film won't do that. The moment you get senators involved, oh shit, now we have to fight the new world order. Great one. But I'm assuming that him telling then that the senator that you must do better hasn't in fact solved anything, because there are still films to come. So yeah, almost like that wasn't the best tactic.
That weird platitude was probably super helpful in the context of the MCU, I'm sure. Anything else?
Yeah, then it was just the Thunderbolts, which closed that off, which I know nothing about. Is the Thunderbolts the sort of the Z tier characters from the Z tier films like Black Widow. So you've got
Yeah, think of it as
Task Manager and someone else.
Yeah, think of it as like the Suicide Squad for Marvel, really. And the Suicide Squad, particularly James Gunn's, consisted of those C-list characters. I know you Brits say Z weird, fucking Z, whatever. Uh, but I wouldn't say they're necessarily Z-list, but they're definitely probably C and D. But hey, like, did you see James Gunn's Suicide Squad?
Now I have a feeling I had it on and didn't pay any attention to it.
Oh,
So
okay.
the,
It actually
the
was
answer is
okay.
technically yes and meaningfully no.
I think that's where they're, if you kind of look from a studio's perspective, like you can bring up, lower tier superheroes and still get, an entertaining movie out of it. But that's the trade off you're going to have. Like, yeah, the movie was entertaining, but it bombed. No one saw it. No one went to see it. And that's kind of the price you pay. That was also some ill will from the shitty Suicide Squad that came out in 2016. But and on that same note too, like when you're bringing in lower tier heroes, C list, D list, Z list, you need them to be accompanied by the bigger heroes that you've already established. And when you're making your C list heroes your primaries, that's not going to work. The only reason people
to do that, though, you remember
What
when
do
we
you mean?
had Black Widow come out, we were explicitly told that they couldn't involve any of the bigger name heroes because she couldn't be seen to be relying on anybody else to solve her problems. So you're not allowed to actually bring in the big name heroes. Not that there are many big name heroes left either.
No, but you could. It might be a contract thing for why they haven't brought the X-Men in yet, but that's your established character set right there. Those are your established heroes that people would give a shit about. I heard a rumor, and I'm not sure if it's 100%, but I heard that like Fox's contracts with those actors run through 2026. So yes, Disney could make they could have made an X-Men movie off the bat once that deal closed, but they'd have to still use those same actors at least until 2026. So if they want to start fresh, they really need to wait, which also explains why like we've kind of gotten drops of those actors here and there. Professor Xavier was back as Patrick Stewart. The stupid bait and switch bullshit that happened in WandaVision with Pietro, which pissed everybody off. I was infuriated when that happened. And they're bringing back Hugh Jackman for one last ride. So all that makes sense. Like the pieces fall into place, but it's still the picture is not completely painted.
Well, I know Patrick Stewart gave an interview when he said that he didn't think that he and Ian McKellen are done with the MCU just yet. This might be him looking for work. I think nature will disagree with him.
It might.
He doesn't think he's done. So
he doesn't look too good.
He doesn't sound too good. It's fine. He's in a wheelchair. As his character, he looks like he should be one in real life as well. But it's fine. It's more the voice and the delivery. I think the way he slurs as though his teeth are about to fall out every time he speaks a line.
Yeah,
I think that's more him looking for work than it is anything else. But I wouldn't put it past them to try and bring them back. The problem with that, though, is that it's very hard to. So you would have to, if you're bringing in the same actors, so you'd have to kind of establish a kind of continuity with the X-Men films that have gone prior to that, which constrains the studio, and the studio doesn't particularly like being constrained, especially by films that are not its own, in the case of the X-Men films. But if you're going to recast them, I think for most normies, it's not been long enough since the last X-Men film for us not to think, wait, what? There's an X-Men again, but who are these? Who are these people? It's what happens when you reboot so often that the stench of the previous entry doesn't quite dissipate before you debut the new one, which I think for people who don't pay a huge amount of attention might be confusing or at least off-putting.
They got away with it with Spider-Man because 2012 Amazing Spider-Man came out, which was a reboot of the Tobey Maguire series just 5 years prior that it ended. Amazing Spider-Man 2 comes out in 2014, gets shit on, rightfully so. That movie was ass. And then 2 years later, Spider-Man's introduced in the MCU. Totally new iteration again, but it worked. So maybe we could reverse engineer why that worked, because it did. That was a concern, though.
Right
that was a concern at the time, I remember, by everyone. Like, is it too early? But they made it work.
They did. I'm wondering whether they were helped by the fact that nobody actually watched The Amazing Spider-Man 2,
I know
so it felt like longer.
it still made $700 million, which is
They did.
no, it's
Wow.
not. It's not incredible, but all the same, that's so did Thor: Love and Thunder. Like, and that also gives you an idea of like what's considered a bomb too, because those movies both were priced at the same, probably cost
Hmm.
wise, and both were considered bombs. So, but you can't say $700 million isn't a good chunk of people seeing the movie.
No. And I think that there's an element of relativity that comes in there because a bomb for these big superhero films now is still considered a success for almost any other film that's out
Oh
there.
yeah, it's
If
all
you
relative to how
yeah.
much it costs. It like you have to bring into context, of course.
Which probably does say something about why we've continued down this long and disastrous road, because even the worst performing films, up until the last couple, which have flirted with losing money, even the worst performing ones have still made enough money to be worth continuing with without any need for introspection or retrospection on the part of the studios. There's no need to change anything if your bad films are still making $600 million, as long as they didn't cost $600 million to make. So that might be a reason. What we really need to see is more of a bomb than that. Like an Ant-Man level bomb or a Shazam level bomb might change some minds, but not a Thor: Love and Thunder, which is a shame because that film was abysmal.
That was worthy of a mega bomb.
Yes, I think
Yeah.
the only way that Ant-Man is worse than Love and Thunder is because Ant-Man technically breaks more. Although, no, even no, it just does. No, Ant-Man just breaks more. Yeah, the way it introduces the multiverse, because theoretically, Love and Thunder has the stupid wish system, the one wish granted by eternity. Is that the character's name?
I guess.
But with the infinite multiverse, does that mean there are infinite eternities that grant you infinite wishes? And that wouldn't
Yeah,
have
yeah,
been a
yeah.
problem if it was just the one. Thor: Love and Thunder establishes there's one wish, which is dumb, but manageable. But if you've introduced a multiverse in which infinite wishes exist, you've broken something retrospectively.
It
So
doesn't even
Ant-Man
matter.
mechanically is worse than Love and Thunder, though I think Love and Thunder is the worst film in almost every other respect.
I 100% agree. Um, so the thing with movies that are this big when it comes to IP, I think I talked about this on another stream with you when we were discussing Ant-Man before it came out. And it's that these movies, they're going to have a fan base because the numbers are so massive. Like if your biggest movie made 2.5, 2.6 billion dollars, let's say it bottoms out, the worst of the worst, at Batman and Robin's this shit. Well, you're still probably looking at a movie making like 200, 300 million dollars, and that's a good chunk of change. But contextually, it's not when you have to make 400 or 500 break even every time, because that's how much the movie costs. 200 to produce, and then 100 to 150 to advertise. So it just becomes like, even though there's a built-in fan base, and so the IP still has some value, you're just it's never financially worth making money off it. And you can get to that point with this. That's what happened with Batman in the 90s. Um, Batman overall is not as big as the Marvel IP now, but at the time, he was like fucking way bigger than anything Marvel could produce. And that was still technically a financial bomb, and set the entire Batman IP back for years. And it still made like $200 million. And, that goes in line with what we were talking about. That is a massive bomb, even though it made relative a shit ton of money and a bunch of people saw it.
Yes, which means what is the failure point then? So we've gone through the list of MCU Phase 5 stuff. I don't know, maybe I should get the list of. I don't know what the DC release slate is like, but I think we're probably too early on to know or to do the
Yeah,
equivalent
I feel like
list.
that's upside and down, up and down. I know that we have Joker 2 coming out, which
Yes.
is anybody in the chat excited for that movie?
Is that the one
Because
that's the musical with Lady Gaga in it?
yes, I almost feel like this is a Matrix Resurrections situation where the studio was like, "Hey, make another one," and the director was just like,
Shoot
"It
me.
doesn't need another one, because it'll suck. So I'll make it and make it shitty." Yeah, because that's what Lana Wachowski did with Resurrections. She's like, I'm gonna ruin this movie. I'm not gonna let someone else do it." Because who is excited for a fucking musical Joker sequel? What even is that?
It does seem like such a strange decision that they might make it work, though, because you don't make a decision like that, I would assume, unless you've got some idea of what you're doing with it. The Joker was an unexpected success when it came out anyway. I don't think anyone was really excited for it when it was
No,
announced, and
not to
they
make
didn't
$1 billion.
expect it. No, certainly not. They didn't expect it to take the direction that it took either. And yet there it is. It was unexpected. It did something new, and it was very popular. So a musical Joker featuring Lady Gaga, which sounds on paper as though it's going to bomb like hell, might accidentally end up being, or deliberately, but beyond my genius, might end up being quite good. I suppose we'll wait and see. The Batman 2, obviously you're very excited for.
I am.
So
Yes.
that's another one.
And that was again a contextual situation, because that movie also made like $750 million on a massive budget. However, that one was considered a success, and hey, let's move forward, because it's going by the Batman Begins model. That movie started with that movie Batman Begins only made like 200 million domestic. It cost a shit ton of money, but it was coming off the back end of Batman and Robin like 8 years prior. The IP was kind of in the shitter, but they're like, okay, we broke even and it was well received. Let's make a sequel. We think now like we'll regain that audience trust. And I think that's kind of what's happening with the Batman too, because say what you will, I almost think there were two different audiences for that movie. The people who wanted to go see it and went and saw it in theaters, and then 45 days later it was released on HBO Max, and the people who didn't want to see it, surprise, surprise, were kind of disappointed. Shocker. But the people who made that movie money, the people who went to the theater, really enjoyed it. And that's objectively true. If you follow box office, how it goes, how drops work, that movie only fell like 49% week after week after massive openings. After the massive opening, it fell like 49 or 50%, which is a very strong hold nowadays for a movie like that. And then fell even less each weekend. So objectively speaking, the people who enjoyed it will see it. So that's why they're investing in it, and probably anticipating a bigger box office haul next. Okay, I'm done defending the movie.
It's fine. Someone has to. I didn't. I genuinely, I did not hate it up until right at the end. I did think it was too derivative of Seven, but that's not
Fair.
really enough of a reason to hate the thing. It's
the only movie I've seen with 4 acts. There's 4 acts.
There's a couple of there's a couple I can think of, but that's the most recent one. But as soon as you get to a plot point, which is basically and 4chan floods the city, that's when you sort of lose me as a writer, I think. Like,
yeah, I like the
not...
small scale, and then it just went huge at the end. Didn't need to.
But the second one is coming out, and back to the point of, where these superhero films are going, you make a good case for the popularity of the first one. I assume that means that people will be looking forward to the second one.
I think so.
Likewise with Joker. I can't think that Marvel has an equivalent, with the exception of Guardians. I don't think Marvel has an equivalent property which people are looking at with anticipation.
Deadpool 3 with Wolverine.
Yeah, is that more... I've never really got on with that. Well, I never liked Deadpool, so I never really looked into it. Isn't Deadpool more niche in the way that Shazam is niche? Not in the same style of humor, but in the sense that it's a side story, it's a way. It's not something that the mass audience will invest in because it's not really relevant to the mainline story.
I think I think it'll be kind of a Guardians 3 situation where, like, yes, it's part of the MCU, but it's such its own thing that it's not really gonna... It could be really good, and people will say, I really love the Deadpool trilogy, and still not give them any credit for or any leeway for what they might do with future MCU movies, because it's going to feel so separated from everything else. So even if that movie's an absolute fucking banger, I'm not going to be like, oh, the MCU's back. They certainly got me with the nostalgia thing of bringing Hugh Jackman back, but even if it's good, it's not going to say anything.
It's the Guardians problem that you identified earlier, which is that this is the end point of a story. The popular ones, the ones that people might theoretically be looking forward to, are the continuations from earlier phases, back when they could actually make good films and tell good stories. They're not the new ones that are actually creating or leading anywhere new. So even if it's successful, what comes of its success? Well, probably nothing. DC is this unknown commodity because nobody except James Gunn really knows what they're doing with that.
Nope.
So for superhero films generally as a meta, the best case scenario is Marvel fades and DC rises. I kind of suspect, though, that we will get a bigger decline from Marvel than a rise from DC. Whatever DC does, I think by that point, Marvel is dragging down the meta. So when James Gunn debuts his Superman film, for example, it could be brilliant. It could be everything everyone wants to see from a Superman film. But the number of people who won't go to see it because, oh, it's another superhero film, and we've seen the last 50,000 of those, and we know what they're about, is Marvel lowering the ceiling for DC in that sense. It will drag the rest of the genre down with it.
I find it peculiar too that DC keeps going, or Warner Brothers, whoever, the BlackRock owns everything. But I find it interesting that they keep hiring people to lead this that are writer directors themselves. So they hired Zack Snyder. Bad fucking idea. And he's a writer director. He always has a co-writer usually, but he always participates. He's always huge into the story and how it's going to work. And then they hire James Gunn. Huge improvement as far as filmography goes. A little worried about how much time he spends on Twitter. So I'm really not super excited about what he's going to do. But all the same, when Marvel was really kicking, it's because they hired a guy who knew how to hire people, not someone who was going to literally create the entire universe and say, okay, here you go. Kevin Feige wasn't that guy. Kevin Feige knew how to find the right people. That does breed more longevity than just having one person kind of control everything. It's not the George R.R. Martin situation or something. And it's kind of, I think that's an overlooked aspect of that. Like they keep hiring someone who is going to create the whole universe, and you're putting everything on that one person's plate. And the success of Marvel, I think that aspect's overlooked. Kevin Feige was not a man who created. He found the right people to create.
He did, though I think there's something to be said for having the sort of the overarching supremo. It's one thing. I mean, it's the George Lucas expanded universe thing in Star Wars. George Lucas is the creative visionary behind the entire thing. He can't possibly write everything himself, but giving one person essentially the yes/no vote at the end is what keeps it sort of contiguous. It makes the universe make more sense than if it's a load of disconnected people just randomly throwing shit at a wall, taking stories wherever they want to take them, and hoping everybody else falls into line with them. The problem is that you've got a single point of failure when you do that. So Feige might have been more on the ball back in the earlier days and he hired better people. The moment he takes his eye off the ball, the moment he starts hiring the wrong people, the moment he's overstretched, he has too much to take account of, then that previous strength, which is having the single point of authority, collapses in on itself. And that's why you get Phase 4, which is just, well, who can we find who's vaguely funny and different? Taika Waititi, that's good. Who can make a film alongside Taika Waititi? I don't know. Who did the Eternals?
Chloe Zhao.
Zhao, that's the one.
Yeah.
Very similar filmmaker. You can definitely get a consistent vision from Taika Waititi to Chloe Zhao. That's the problem with it's the problem with George Lucas as well. In that, well, I think we see the problem with Disney Star Wars since George Lucas leaves is what happens when you take away that single authorial intent from the top of the production. And you don't replace it with anything except just hire, fire. So, yeah, it's a model that can produce the best, as it did, I think, probably with MCU phases 1 through 3. But that person, as soon as they start losing their ability or they don't pay as much attention, will take the thing down with them, because the things that made them strong to begin with are also the things that can destroy a franchise if you're not anchoring the thing as you're supposed to. I think Feige is definitely... either he's lost ability or he's just taken on too much or he's lost interest in it. I'm not sure which. But then, on the other hand, you can mark the decline of the MCU from the point at which Disney takes it over. So then, of course, you've got the question of studio interference above him. It's a hard one to narrow down, really. I think there are a number of facets behind the failure.
And speaking of him too, with them bringing it was Bob Iger they brought back, right? They got rid of Bob
Chapek, yes.
Chapek.
And then Iger comes back. Is that the way it went? I think that's
yeah. I remember kind of my gut instinct when that happened was to be excited. But then I was like, oh, wait, he started all this shit. He started it and then he left. And Bob Chapek was the one that tried to put breaks to it, and then we saw that video where he was apologizing, and we heard the gun cock in the back. I'm no longer excited about it, and I think kind of Kevin Feige is. I think for a time he was the man for it, but all the same, it's almost like the culture war has infected everything. So that's influencing, no matter what he hires, it's like it's influencing him too.
But there was a theory that was one of the reasons that they decided to do away with Bob Chapek. I'm going to get the Bobs confused. Bob Chapek, I think, was the one who Iger gets out at, roughly speaking, the right time. The MCU is doing pretty well. The pandemic's just hit. Disney parks will tank in terms of income, and he disappears at the sort of the height of all of this. Doesn't take the blame for the failure of the parks, which were inevitable. Chapek comes in. I think he is seen to be more interventionist and more politically active, which is why he will say things publicly that Iger perhaps didn't, certainly around the Don't Say Gay bill when that was a thing in Florida. He was largely strong-armed into that stance because Disney, in fact, hadn't had any impact at all. It hadn't lobbied one way or the other on the Don't Say Gay thing. Then it had to pretend that it did because there was the outcry amongst its staff and all the rest of that. So Chapek comes out and starts being very political about it. That feeds back into the films as well because he's clearly more easily influenced, I think. And so the agenda takes front and center when you have the head of a studio, the head of a company who is much more concerned with seeming on message than seeming to be creating, good works. He fails. The MCU tanks. The parks haven't really recovered. Iger now steps back into the fold. The pandemic is over, so whatever recovery there is in Disney as a whole as a company, he might take the credit for, but won't necessarily be responsible for, because that's just the natural way of things. The interesting thing will be what line he takes, I think, on the rest of the political activism stuff that Disney seems to be infested with, and that infests its films as well.
I brought this up on Open Bar, and it was like
plugging the smaller channels.
Yeah, I have to help out Drinker, you guys. But the Star Wars prequel trilogy brought this to light for me. Look, I think I'm a little older than you. I hated the prequel trilogy. I really don't have anything against Star Wars. I've just never been a huge fan. It's always been much more interesting to kind of watch the fan base and that kind of stuff. But I hated the prequel trilogy. But now they're beloved. And it kind of seems like people who were younger when they watched it, it's nostalgia. And yes, they do enjoy it. And I even think someone like Mahler would say it's an objective. Well, I don't know, but I think those movies are objectively bad. I think Red Letter Media did an incredible job destroying those fucking movies.
I went through the prequels and came to similar conclusions. But my own stance on the prequels, I think the first one comes out in 1999, is that?
Yeah.
So, I wasn't 10 by that point. So I was very young when I saw that in the cinema.
Old man.
But so my stance on the prequels is that, yes, I mean, objectively there are flaws in the way that they're written. Certainly the way they conduct themselves, the acting is I think deliberately subpar. That's one of the defenses, is that George Lucas wanted it to seem like an old-timey epic film in which the acting is not, or it's supposed to be stilted. I don't think that's a defense of the film. That's it's supposed to be bad. We don't accept that as a defense of She-Hulk. It's supposed to be bad. Yeah. Is not a defense. The vision that they had, the epic vision and the epic tragedy they were trying to tell, I think is brilliant. For their ideas and for some of the execution, I still enjoy them. They're difficult to watch for the smaller technical aspects. Some of the writing, the dialogue in particular, is abysmal. The acting is not good. Some of the character writing and decisions don't make a huge amount of sense, but the overarching story does fit within the broader continuity. It actually tells a story to begin with across a 3-act. It is an epic Greek-style tragedy, which I admire. It's a very bold idea as well. It's one of the bolder filmic trilogies you are likely to find in terms of the ideas it's trying to put across. That bored people with Attack of the Clones with its politicking, but actually that's one of I actually quite like Attack of the Clones, but then I'm a boring
do you really?
Person. I kind of do. It's also because Christopher Lee's in it, and Christopher Lee, I like anything he's in, even the old Hammer films. But
if you like Attack of the Clones, I'm going to bring this up every Sunday now on Brown's show.
Oh, but the difference is I'm not going to say it's a good film. I'm just saying that I enjoyed it. But I know I enjoy all of the prequels without thinking that they're particularly good films in their own right.
Well, the prequel trilogy and the response now to those movies has made me think this is like like a long-term plan? Because I keep saying, or I've kept thinking originally, like, okay, Disney is not thinking long term. They're thinking that this is the way the wind's blowing, and so that's what they're putting out. And movies and TV shows take a long time to produce. So when they started this shit a few years ago, and it's really built up momentum now, like all this stuff was already made, it's already coming out, and yes, it started crashing almost like a domino effect and stuff. But there's also another train of thought that suggests like people get really nostalgic for shit, even if it was bad when it first came out. So are the kids who are seeing all this bullshit now going to look back 20 years from now and Disney's going to remake whatever shitty, super wokey bullshit movie that they came out with 2 years ago, in 2021? Is that like the long-term dividends they're hoping will pay off? Again, I don't think that's really an aspect that people have like considered, because
No, but then there's the question of contrast. I mean, one of the great achievements of much modern media has been to make the distinctly average offerings of earlier years seem brilliant by comparison.
yeah,
Because, if your modern offering is the Disney Star Wars sequel trilogy, then the prequels will look fantastic compared to that, because actually they are fantastic compared to the sequel trilogy, without being necessarily good in their own right. There's a lot of re-evaluation that goes on because of the decline of modern media. Older entries, which in their own terms aren't necessarily that good, are still infinitely better even than this is. I mean, Jurassic World Dominion comes out, and I suddenly start thinking, you know what, Jurassic Park 3 wasn't that bad by comparison. So
I was I'm guilty of that one. Like, Jurassic Park 3 wasn't too fucking bad, was it?
well, not compared to Dominion, definitely
No,
not.
not compared to that piece of shit, man.
So it's a weird sort of economy by remove, I suppose, that the esteem in which older entries are held increases in direct proportion to the decline of modern entries. I don't think it's a sustainable business model, but it is a factor. As for whether it's that there is some sort of hope that these things are reevaluated, or that the kids of today will look back to 20 years ago and suddenly find a new love for these older films, that might happen by its own accord because the films are just better, even if they are the Star Wars prequels. But the other one that I'm slightly interested in is what kids today think of the Star Wars of today. Is The Last Jedi as, pivotal in the minds of kids who went to see it, as The Phantom Menace was to kids who went to see that when that came out? It would be interesting to know whether those things are much more popular amongst children, and to the same degree, because the point of comparison is it as popular amongst children today as it was amongst children then? But yeah, will we be looking back in 10 years' time, whenever the next Star Wars film comes out, and all the kids who grew up watching the sequels will be saying, oh, well, this is shit, The Last Jedi was so much better? I hope not, because that's basically a sign of the decline of civilization as we know it, but it's possible.
It could be too, because like, yes, even if they're not making a lot of money now, like over time, a lot of people end up seeing it. Think of like totally different genre, but one I adore very much, the slasher genre with the Halloween movies. Like those movies never really made a lot of money. The first one did for its time, especially for an independent film, and contextually with its budget, it was a massive hit. But all the same, nothing prepared you for how much money the 2018 one, the soft reboot, made. It made like $180 million, which is just, it's like triple what the highest one ever made. So it's like, oh, there's a hidden audience in there somewhere waiting for the right thing. They are fans of the IP, or they're just waiting for the right moment or the right product to come out and show their love and support. And one thing that I thought of too was like, when I was a kid, because I didn't have internet access, I could, uh, I watched older movies. Like I'm very educated when it comes to older cinema, older music. I was born in the 80s, but I listened to mostly music from the 60s, and my favorite band's like a modern band, but they're still like 30 years old. But I don't think kids these days have that. There's so much current content, and yeah, a lot of it's bullshit, that like legitimately, I don't think a lot of kids even know that there's better writing and better quality films out there most of the time. So this will be what they know. This will be the shitty writing and the shitty movies and the shitty acting and all this crap is what they will consider good because it's all they know because they haven't gone back to watch the fucking Godfather.
No, but then again, I did. And I like to cling to this faintly romantic notion that the quality of these films will speak for itself, and that more kids today will enjoy the Star Wars films of the 70s and 80s than will enjoy The Last Jedi, for example, in time, when they grow up and learn how to, consume media properly. You're watching films wrong, kids.
You're watching it wrong, guys.
It's a romantic belief. It's probably unsubstantiated, but it would be nice to think that there is an internal, integral quality to the older films that speaks for itself and that will become recognized over time. But the problem is, at the moment, I think, really, that my nice romantic view is overly romantic, because half of the reason lots of these films get made is precisely that. People are prepared to settle for less. I keep saying this to people whenever I'm criticizing anything that they like. Jurassic World Dominion, Avatar, what's another blockbuster that's come out, or any Marvel film that's come out since Endgame. When people turn up and say, "Oh, you're just criticizing and nitpicking. It's a good blockbuster film. Turn your brain off and you'll enjoy it." My response to that is always, "Well, okay, you say it's a blockbuster popcorn flick, so turn your brain off. Is it a better popcorn blockbuster flick than Jurassic Park was, or than Jaws was, or the original Star Wars? Is The Last Jedi better than A New Hope?" Most of the time, the answer is, no. And then you have to ask, well, why? Why do you say that? Because you're telling me to turn my brain off, but the minute I ask you a simple question to compare a popcorn flick with a popcorn flick, you're saying the older one is better. All I'm saying is maybe apply that question of your own volition to anything you're watching today and actually start demanding that your new big blockbuster films are better, because you've exceeded that they are not as good as the previous ones. Then maybe you'll get better films. But as long as people are prepared to say, it doesn't matter that Avatar, The Way of Water, has no story, it's enjoyable if you turn your brain off, well, okay, then brainless entertainment is what you're going to get. But then don't turn around and complain at me for not turning my brain off because I prefer to have it switched on.
Yeah, that question and people's answers just, it makes it so obvious. Everyone has a line that they draw somewhere. And when they're arguing with you, it's usually just because they don't like it where you drew it. It's absurd. Would you like to read some super chats?
I can do, yes. We can do.
There were a couple for you while you were gone. Oh yeah, if you, I starred a bunch.
You hit the start button. Oh, you very clever person.
So if you want to, go for it. There were a few for you right off the bat. There were a couple off the bat while you were away, and they were for you. So if you want to go back and read them.
So I will kick off at the top with Spectre Von Baron for $10. Platoon, have you perhaps had a chance to see Puss in Boots: The Last Wish? I feel like it's a good example of a rare modern film that doesn't undercut its action or heartfelt moments with vapid jokes. I had it on. I was unfortunately having to do something else at the same time, so I wasn't paying enough attention to it. I do remember liking what I saw, though. Yes, I think it's one of those. I've heard so many good things said about it that I do just need to go back and actually pay it my full attention, I think.
Yeah, I need to go watch it myself, too.
It can't be worse than Avatar, so there is that.
No, sir.
From Hostman Socrates. No, he's changed his name. It's Hostman Kotaku, brackets Socrates, minus 47. There's a reference in there that I'm not getting. For $5 statement, HK47, ready to engage in unadulterated violence against poor films, including Emo Bat.
No.
Yeah, do it. I'd like to see HK47 against Emo Batman, because that fight would last about 5 seconds. One of many, crappy movie fatigue. Spider-Man No Way Home proves not superhero fatigue.
Yes, I wanted to read that one in particular. My bad. I just thought that was a good comment.
It is a good comment.
It is a good comment.
Then the question is, why do we not get more films like No Way Home, I suppose?
Mm-hmm.
Where are we? Daryl Reichardt?
I think so.
We'll go with that. For $9.99. I'm not tired of comic book movies. I'm tired of crap directors not knowing the source material. But the thing is, they say that it's conflicting. So Kevin Feige will say, look, we've got 50, 60 years of comics we can draw on, so the MCU will go on for decades. But then other MCU people will come out in the press and say we deliberately hire writers with no knowledge of the source material because we don't want them constrained in how they want to tell stories. So, I'm not sure which it is. They seem to hire people who don't know the source material, but they do know the source material exists.
I think I used Sonic the Hedgehog as a good example of this, and because yes, you can understand the source material, but that can only bring you so far because you can't adapt something directly. It's just not going to work. There's a reason there are different mediums, because not everything translates directly. And what they did with Sonic, I thought was really well done, because the essence of Sonic the Hedgehog, the atmosphere, the games, and his characterization was there, and that's what made it a Sonic movie and a good video game adaptation. You're not going to adapt something that doesn't really have much of a story to begin with. You're not going to, you know what I mean? That doesn't necessarily apply to comic books as a whole, but a lot of the source material, like there are thousands and thousands of different stories of these characters, and a lot of them are different. You're talking about like a comic book series, let's say The Amazing Spider-Man. They're at issue like 1000 something. Well, people who write and draw the comic books come on for like 1 year at a time, maybe 2 max. You're not necessarily going to get an Ultimate Spider-Man run like you did in the 2000s with Brian Michael Bendis and Mark Bagley. It's not going to happen. They defined that series. But all the same, so in the same series, continuity wise, it's going to look, and the characters might even sound completely different 12 issues apart from each other. So understanding the source material, I think, is important when it comes to understanding the essence of the character. But when it comes to adapting stuff, well, guess what? Out of thousands of fucking comic books, a lot of that source material is dog shit, and you shouldn't adapt it because it sucks. So being like, oh, well, this movie is, it's really true to the source material. Well, what if the movie sucked? Well, let's go back to the source material. Oh, you adapted it 1-to-1? You adapted a shitty story. That sucks. Well, great. What are we going to do with this now?
Yeah, it's the Last of Us problem again. Everyone wants it to stick right closely to the source material.
Just go play the game.
They don't want it to stick close to the source material at all, because we all want Last of Us 2 to change.
Let's see. And Hostman again. Hostman Socrates, I think I read this one. Observation, I'm just waiting for the useless meatbag trend of the superhero film to go in the way of the Western and film noir. Hey, don't bag on film noir. That's all I got to say.
No, but it's a good point. I mean, it is a good point. Is the point I've made previously, which is that, you know, we can argue about the cause of fatigue all we want to, but the fact is that every other dominant film genre has suffered fatigue and gone the way of the Western. The Western was incredibly dominant through the 50s and the 60s, and then it fades and it goes away. Film noir, very dominant for a time. It gives way to, you know, the sci-fi epic inspired by Star Wars in the 70s and the 80s, and that disappears again. Fantasy comes along inspired by The Lord of the Rings, and that becomes tired and cheap and worn out, and that goes away as well. Eventually, superhero films will go that way. The question is that what's happening now, or is the cause something else? And I can see the argument for something else because the decline has been so rapid. It's not just that the decline is there. The decline will happen inevitably. The fact the decline has been so speedy, though, from Infinity War through to, well, even Endgame was a step down, but from Endgame then down to Love and Thunder, Multiverse of Madness, Wakanda Forever, Ant-Man and the Wasp, that's so steep a decline that I don't think you can attribute it solely to fatigue. So that's the argument against fatigue. But eventually superhero films will go away. It's just that I think maybe the cause of their decline is a bit artificial at the moment.
That'll be a good thing, because after the Western genre kind of died out, we got some of the best Westerns ever made. They came out sparingly. Unforgiven, Tombstone, that kind of shit that came out in the 90s. Those were some of the best Westerns I've ever seen. And so that would be awesome if that happened to superheroes. It's too much of a good thing. If we wanted it so bad when we were growing up, now we got it and we're tired of it because they're just force feeding us crap. But if the genre falls and they reel it back in, then what we're going to get is they're going to be a little more careful with what they put out. It's going to be a lot more sparingly done, and it's probably going to be much better off in the long run for it if you're a superhero fan. Let's see.
That's very optimistic for a cynic.
I am probably the most optimistic out of like everyone in our friends group. I swear to God, which is really funny considering my name. For you, sir.
From Zis1218 for $10. Little Platoon, playing off the fatigue theme, it seems there's a talent fatigue in general. The writers, VFX artists, stunts, etc. appear to lack the passion for the work / source material bought earlier. Yes, the hiring decisions have a lot to do with it, but it's like it's the Kathleen Kennedy thing. Everyone, I think, largely led by people like Doomcock, seem to have got it into their heads that the entire problem can be pinned on the people doing the hiring and the firing. So Kathleen Kennedy is solely to blame for everything that goes wrong with Star Wars. You can get rid of Kathleen Kennedy tomorrow if you want to, but that's not going to save Star Wars. Everyone she's hired is still there. Everyone, the person who replaces her will probably be someone she's hired as well. And all the writers that are in place and have long contracts and are already working on new products will be there for quite some time to come. So yes, the damage might stem from an individual, but it compounds itself and it rebounds upon itself, and it will carry on, just ricocheting off itself like shit being bounced off a cave wall. It's yeah, it's not going to fix itself anytime soon. Even if you get rid of the bad people in charge, the problems will persist.
J.K. Fosel? I hope I said it right. For $4.99. Hey, I don't know if this is a good setting for this super chat or not, but you should talk about Shelob. I believe that's you, Platoon. I love listening to you talk about LOTR stuff.
I'm not sure which specific thing about Shelob you want.
Was that in one of your ROP videos? Yeah,
there was the problem right at the beginning of Rings of Power, because they didn't have the rights to adapt the actual origin story of any of this stuff. They have a problem because when Melkor destroys the trees in Valinor, in the Silmarillion, that's oh god, my names have gone. What's Shelob's mum's name gone?
You're asking the wrong guy there. Chat, help him.
That's really Ungoliant. That's the one. So Ungoliant is the one who does the physical act of destroying the trees, as egged on by Melkor. But because Ungoliant isn't in the Rings of Power, there can't be a Shelob. And because there isn't a Shelob, going forward in time, Frodo and Sam can just stroll through Cirith Ungol because there's no giant spider there to kill them, because the Rings of Power effectively and accidentally retcons Shelob's origin story from several generations back. So that's one thing about Shelob. If you like giant spiders, then I'm sure she's available.
But we'll get back on topic here in a minute too, but I just wanted to get through some of these. They're starting to pile up. Well, we still had two more things.
Oh yes, we do. Yeah.
Yes, we did. You get me on an MCU rant, man. I'll stay there for hours.
It's between that and fat people.
Oh yeah, we're on our stream, not Brown's. I can bitch about that all I want. I'll read this one. It's probably for you though, my friend, because they're split between, I have no idea. Patrick Porlier, I probably said that wrong, for a Canadian $22. The issue I had with Loki was that it was the old Avengers 1 Loki, not Infinity War Loki. Oh, I believe, Laura, you meant Loki. You cannot have a Loki watch a darn movie of him and expect me to believe that he is the same character from Infinity War. I know that scene was fucking hilarious, because all it is just being like, okay, guys, we need to speed this up and get everything back to baseline just like a sitcom would. So forget the fact that Loki's dead. This is the Loki you remember. It's such a fucking contrived way of doing that. I don't know how anyone could stomach that, but it is what it is.
It's an interesting, it's a difficult one as well, because I think when I was reviewing, what was I can't remember, it was one of the Marvel things I was reviewing, and I mentioned Loki in it, but not Loki from the series Loki, and said that Loki was still alive, despite obviously Thanos having killed him. And people's default response tended to be, well, that's a different Loki. The Loki who's still alive is not the same as the Loki who died. Which is, it's a philosophical problem that I don't think Marvel understands itself. So the problem with that argument is that Loki is the same Loki that we knew, right up until the point at which they intervene in the timeline and he survives by stealing the Tesseract again and disappearing off. He's had all the same life experience, presumably up until that point. So he is pretty much the same Loki. All they've done is gone back in time. He's just not the Loki that was informed by events subsequent to his disappearance in Endgame. which
Right,
is
but that's what's
difficult
so
to get your head
stupid.
around.
That's what it is, because we're supposed to believe that he's going to just feel the exact same way as that Loki did, who actually experienced all the things. I just find it fucking ridiculous. It is. It's just absurd. But it's just to get us back to that sitcom level baseline where everything's the exact same the next episode and nothing really had any stakes. Just kidding, everybody. Hey, how do you feel about bringing on another YouTuber
Go for
for the
it.
spot?
I'm
Go
always
for
up
it.
for a threesome.
Well, you can take care of the super chats then, if while I get them in here, if you'd like.
Okay, I'm excited to find out who this is. This is how we roll
I have,
on this live stream.
yeah, this could go horribly. I don't think so, though. I've watched his content, and he's a fellow Nashvilleian, which is fucking cool.
So that means if he's terrible, you can go around and beat him up personally.
That's right. I'll find out where he lives, and I'll just be like, "You fuck Platoon," and I show up, buddy. Hang on just a second.
Well, while you do that, I'll carry on with the super chats, in which case, so Stu Dent says Spawn was the first black lead Marvel superhero. I will take your word for that. That sounds like a comics thing, which, alas, I have no knowledge of at all, because I'm very deficient when it comes to comics. Petrus Larides for 10, I think, Australian dollars. Iron Man is the only capeshit character who I have modeled a character.ai character on. I only cared about the MCU because of him and Captain America. It's a brilliant idea. If character.ai is what I think it is, Tony Stark has such a brilliant, strong, powerful personality that you can do a lot of stuff just by prompting an AI to display his personality traits. You can get a lot of fun variety going on there, I'm sure.
Oh, our guest has arrived.
Ooh.
I will bring on our guest. His YouTube channel is the Bonebridger. Welcome to the stream, sir.
Hey.
Yeah.
Good evening.
How are you two doing?
Awesome.
Now, you guys haven't started praising like Thor 4 without me, right? It's your favorite MCU movie? Not to send you on a tangent.
Is that your favorite one?
Oh, no, I hate it. I really hate it. I just don't want to miss out on that fun.
Oh, we've gone on an hour and a half MCU rant, so
I picked up on some of it. I was like, someone must have just pushed you a little bit. Just a little.
Yeah. You bring it up, and
Disney,
I'll
I think, is the answer to that one.
Yeah,
Disney. Yes.
Yeah. We still have something. You want to move on to Star Wars? I did want to talk about that a little bit. I've been itching to talk.
Yeah,
about
we can save the super chats for later, but we've got Star Wars to do. Although since Bonebridger has apparently come on wanting to defend, please unironically defend Thor.
If you want to do that, brother, please do.
No.
Steelman Full of Thunder.
We can go to Star Wars. I think I'm going to bash that movie the rest of my life. I think I might just make that my mission.
It's a fair one. It's a worthwhile mission, lifelong.
Yeah, it's either that or Multiverse of Madness. I got to pick one of those.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good question. Which one is worse? I think Multiverse is worse because it breaks more, much like Ant-Man.
Yeah, that one made me mad.
Yeah,
I think Thor really
dumb.
sucked it. But Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness made me genuinely mad. That it's really weird to think that a year ago I was still super excited for the MCU, because I was like, oh, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, like, yeah, Eternal sucks. Shang-Chi was not very good, but Doctor Strange has got this. He was great in Spider-Man, awesome in Infinity War and Endgame. Like, what a treat to have him in there. And then it happened. Then the movie happened.
Yep. Then it happened.
Yeah.
Sam Raimi couldn't, like there was all these things that made me excited. Like there was the allure of we're going to have more heroes than any movie. And what we got was the Illuminati being deleted in like 2 seconds by Wanda's endless powers, where she,
embarrassing. I did
love that though. Oh, it's Professor X nostalgia. Oh no, she snapped his neck.
Just fucking You weren't going to get much out of it anyway. Like, you really had to suspend your disbelief when a 90-year-old Patrick Stewart is like, I'm going to pull you up from under the rubble. Like, shut the fuck up. You're not doing shit. Even in your dream world, you sound feeble, bro.
Yeah.
But I wanted to move on to Star Wars because I found an interesting article. So this one, who knows? I know Little Platoon is very deep into the lore. And like I said, I'm more so than me, at least.
I try.
Yeah. But this one's interesting. Let me see if I can screen share so everyone can get a peek at this wonderful bullshit. Where'd it go? Oh, I lost it. I have to go back to our chat and find it, Platoon. But it's in reference to John Boyega, and this just came out 2 days ago.
I remember the headline. So the headline, while you're finding it, I think, is that he now feels more comfortable with the state of black representation in Star Wars, I believe.
Yep. That was it. Okay.
He's come full circle. He's come back around, it seems.
Ooh, screen sharing. How very professional.
Look how fancy this is.
Almost like
you guys are
right?
pros.
Yeah. So this is it right here. John Boyega says he has become more comfortable with the treatment of black. You pretty much just quoted that verbatim.
That's the journalist in me.
Yeah, that is the journalist in you, sir. There were some very interesting quotes here. Let's see right here. It's so difficult to maneuver, Boyega said in 2020. You get yourself involved in projects and you're not necessarily going to like everything. But what I would say to Disney is do not bring out a black character, market them to be much more important in the franchise than they are, and then have them pushed to the side. It's not good. I'll say it straight up. I had a opinion on that, which is, I know, surprising, but a lot of people had their characters completely pushed aside. It wasn't exclusively because he was a black character. It had nothing to do with that. A lot of people did. What about Captain Phasma or whoever the fuck that character was?
Yes.
You're talking about a franchise that was purchased by Disney and then they wanted to just get shit out. So nothing was planned. So I don't know why he's taking some personal offense to this shit.
Well,
it happened to everybody.
They did airbrush his character out of posters for the Chinese market. So,
blame the Chinese, and yes, blame Disney on that one for participating. But
yeah, I'm a little surprised to see him come around, though. I mean, he was pretty outspoken for a while, but I mean, he's going a little light there. I don't know if that's just his own image he's trying to kind of bring back around, but Star Wars fans weren't exactly happy with him, were they? Would y'all say that Star Wars fans were like, oh man, we really wish we got more of his character? I mean, after Force Awakens, maybe, but
I don't know. I think I know a few people who would have said that, and I think I would probably say that as well, because there were originally, I think, plans to make him into a Jedi as well. I think, was that the Colin Trevorrow version?
Oh, right. Before he got his 9 taken away.
Yeah, that's what I assumed at the end of Force Awakens. So
yeah, Last Jedi wouldn't have any of that though. And
no.
Sure wouldn't.
That's where the problem comes. I mean, they sideline him. Well, they don't sideline him in The Last Jedi, but the problem is they give his character its perfect endpoint. If you're not going to do anything fun with him in The Rise of Skywalker, if you're not going to turn him into a Jedi, if you're not going to make him a pivotal character, then let him sacrifice himself and die, which is what he is prepared to do. That's his logical endpoint. If he's not going to be more important going forward, let him die for the cause. Brilliant. Actually, that would have been a bold decision. It would have made for a really good film. And then, out of the camera shot, out of the blue, comes Rose fucking Tico and denies him his own shot at saving all of his friends. Because ultimately, that's what matters. What's it? You don't fight what you hate, you love what you love. Whatever the horrible quote was.
Fucking bullshit.
I'm kind of convinced she was trying to kill him. Like just trying to, maybe she just wanted to take him out. She was trying to do the job.
No, she's an Empire mole. Yeah. So he's about to stop the First Order, and then she flies in, she saves the cannon, and in her mind, at the back of her mind, yes, Kylo Ren can now march in and kill all of the rebels / resistance / New Republic, whatever they have. Yeah. She's an Empire mole, definitely. It actually unironically makes more sense as a story if you believe that she's a mole. But he was wasted. Like I'm on board with that, and I think you could have done brilliant things with his character. It would have been really interesting to see a much darker turn, which I think was the original plan. When he is a Jedi, Rey is also Force sensitive. Rey turns to the dark side. They have to fight each other. That would have been good, but his character was wasted.
Check this out. One more sec. Let's share screen one more time. Go right back to that article. And somehow he says this. Now, with the trilogy firmly behind him and a thriving film career that doesn't see him tied to the franchise anymore, Boyega appears to be more introspective about the experience. In a new interview with The Times, Boyega explained how he has made peace with the franchise. And this is where it gets good. For me, Star Wars has made the man, in a sense. The experiences, the fun, good times, ugly times, bad times. It makes you who you are as you navigate through the industry, and that has definitely been interesting. And he says this about The Rise of Skywalker. He went on to say that many of his narrative grievances regarding his character's relevance to the story were rectified by J.J. Abrams' conclusion to the trilogy, The Rise of Skywalker.
I'm sorry, what?
Yes. He added that his
He's crazy.
He's fucking crazy. He added that his satisfaction with the end of the story has made him more comfortable enjoying Disney's subsequent Star Wars projects as a fan. I feel like the arc that JJ tried to tie up, that's where I feel comfortable with the release of him. And since then, I've been able to enjoy as a fan The Mandalorian and Obi-Wan. I'm enjoying the balance.
Oh,
of
he
all.
enjoyed Obi-Wan. Oh, I was with him right up until this paragraph.
Oh my gosh.
The bro went off the fucking
Did they
rails
pay
right
him
now,
to
man.
like say those things? Like,
Just right off the rails. This is like the Ray Fisher situation with DC. It kind of feels that way. Is anyone privy to that one?
oh yeah. I
The
get
Justice
that
League
vibe
Ray
a little
Fisher's.
bit.
Yeah, 100%. Like, maybe not as extreme, and especially because it's probably Disney, so he wouldn't even. Yeah, he's not going to go try and sue the company or something. But all the same,
And he's a little
it's-
bit bigger of a star, I guess. So maybe he has a little more,
Yeah,
stuff down the line.
Ray Fisher, semi Jesse Smollett is career.
Yeah. Golly, he
Or,
really did. He nosedived. Like,
Yeah, it's just total L for old Boyega. But anyway,
But
I
I
wanted to
was
bring that
very
up.
much with him because he's right. The character was done an injustice. The Last Jedi
It
in
was.
particular took away his natural arc from him. The decision to ditch Trevorrow and go with Abrams again denied him a real payoff. Hell, but I'm struggling then to reconcile that with he liked The Rise of Skywalker. So his
I felt
ideal
satisfied.
endpoint for his character is leading space horses across the deck of a Star Destroyer in a film in which he earlier says, "Rey, I forgot to tell you," and then the film forgot to tell us what he forgot to tell her. I don't understand how he's reached that conclusion at all.
I don't know.
It's
That's why I
bizarre.
just had to show you guys.
if
This
someone
man
in real
is
life
just-
tells me they like Rise of Skywalker, I usually just run away. Like I'm just afraid at that point. But especially someone with money or like a fame or have been in those movies, that would be terrifying.
I wanted to bring up this article because I wanted to get to how Star Wars is going right now. I've kind of leapfrogged what I was originally going to do for my next video, and I think I'm diving right into Star Wars because the response to Mandalorian, as someone who likes observing what's going on with the culture and everything, has been nothing short of fascinating. With the ratings of Mandalorian coming in at like 1.5, I think, for the season premiere, we are potentially looking at the fucking collapse of one of the biggest IPs of all time in far more rapid succession than the MCU even.
1.5 on 160 million accounts. So like 160 million-ish Disney Plus accounts,
I
and they're
mean-
only getting 1.5. Well,
Granted,
maybe-
that's
maybe a
like
little
opening
more.
week or whatever. I think it's the
Yeah.
opening few days. But all things, so it's not like the movies where people, it's the
Right.
opening weekend type of deal. But all things considered, you're talking about a weekly show, and it was supposed to be much hyped, much anticipated.
Right.
So let's say like what's the average price for a movie theater ticket? Like we'll say, I can Google it, but let's just say it's like $10. So what is that? 1.5 million times 10. And that's not a very big fucking movie opening if it were to be related to a movie. So you're looking at what equates to a bomb, if you
Yeah,
can call a TV show a bomb.
Well, yeah, I don't necessarily think the movie analogy works. I mean, it's a subscription-based model. The audience is limited to the number of people who subscribe to the thing in the
But
first place.
how many
so-
people did you say are
I think it's
subscribed to Disney Plus?
163 million right now.
163 million. That's fucking
Yeah.
crazy.
So that you're not even talking a percent. They're not even getting 1% of their audience, or like you're way under. Yeah, 161.8 million right now.
Jesus.
And that's your biggest Star Wars show. That's the show that's supposed to save your subscriber. You know, like that's the next, what, 7-8 weeks is just.
Yeah, it's been
crazy.
fascinating because, again, we discussed this on Brown Stream a little bit, but when you're talking about your saving grace, what should be your saving grace, only amounting to that much, subscription based or not, there's a reason why there are articles about it. Those are abysmal numbers. And it's terrifying to think if you're a Star Wars fan, any hope whatsoever, when's another movie actually going to come to theaters? I can't even imagine. Is it going to happen even before 2030? Maybe that's best for the franchise, but you're talking about law of diminishing returns again. Because
it would be best for the franchise if they didn't also have a new series coming on every other week, basically. So there's no endpoint. But I'm kind of interested into why The Mandalorian has declined to the extent that it has. I mean, Bonebridger, I'm not sure. I mean, did you like the first season, 2 seasons?
This is what baffles me is I actually do like the first 2 seasons, and a lot of it's probably the Luke stuff. After watching the sequel trilogy, it was like, okay, at least I got this moment, which is a little bit of just fan service for sure. But I can't believe it's doing this bad, because the first episode did bad. That baffles me is how did they still released it at 3 a.m. on a Wednesday. I'm sure that plays a little bit of a role, and you don't really, The Last of Us at least came out Sunday night at 8 or whatever Eastern time. You could get a little hype, and they made 7 million viewers. But I don't know. Boba Fett didn't help things. Kenobi didn't help things.
No, with Book of Boba Fett, I think that cut the legs out underneath Mandalorian season 3, because I didn't watch it because I heard it was terrible. But all things considered, too, apparently whenever Mando was actually in the show, the production value was clearly higher. Everything was better. And so it seems like to try and prop up what they anticipated was probably going to be an underperforming show, they put Mando in there. And what probably should have been the beginnings of season 3 ended up being placed into Book of Boba Fett to try and prop up a piece of shit, and just cutting it out at the knees. And I mean, look what you're getting. You're getting minimal returns. You're getting terrible reviews. If this is your saving grace, what now? What are you going to do?
I think they're in trouble. I think they're in worse trouble than they realize, especially when the money comes out from this quarter, because all you've got is Ant-Man 3 and the Mandalorian premiere. That's your whole Disney Plus subscriber base to say, here's what we did. We had one blockbuster movie and we had one show, and it's not good.
No, and that's what's weird is when you think of they wanted to open a subscription service. Okay, so what are you going to do? You're going to milk Marvel and Star Wars and all the other IPs. If you're pumping out too much, let's say it was amazing. Let's say all these things were amazing. Is there a saturation point where you're just like, man, I can't keep watching this. I can't keep up because it's coming out every week. There's no break. There's always another show. Wouldn't that eventually lead to fatigue anyway? And the longevity of your IPs, what are you going to do? Keep buying up other ones? It just seems like a losing battle.
It's baffling to me, really, because we know that, right? The logic of that makes sense. Like, even if it's good, too much of it would eventually wear you down a little. Like, you need a little bit of a gap, but maybe it's because they don't like, everybody praises the Disney brand, but the brand is really just Marvel, Star Wars, and it used to be animation way long time ago, I guess is gone, but they don't have like a widespread selection. I think it's why if you look at money wise, why Netflix kind of works is they dominate documentaries, international audience, stand-up comedy. You have a wide, and so when you get a hit like Stranger Things, it does help you because you get a new audience. But I don't know. That's a good question about if it was all good? Like, what if all the shows were good? Would it matter?
The Netflix example is good though, because it's not all under one IP. They're not constantly making Stranger Things adjacent TV shows.
Very true.
They have, if something fails, it's okay because they can they can hire someone to come up with a totally new concept. for a totally new show that has nothing to do with anything. That is not Disney's strategy.
That's true. And I think that's their downfall a little bit because they just keep leaning in. They're just going to give us every Star Wars show known to man at the same time every Marvel show they can absolutely get. And there's nothing in between really other than Willow, which was so wonderful for mankind.
The ejection of Willow. I was just, God damn, I hate going on comments and like Facebook chats and stuff, but I was shitting on someone this morning on Facebook. I never get on Facebook, but I was arguing with someone about it because they were making the claim of like, I don't even know, whatever the fuck. We'll just say woke argument. And as the defense of why that show was canceled, like it's just pure prejudice is why that show is canceled. And I just give the same old rundown I always do, which is just like no one can ever take fucking accountability for themselves, can they? They never take accountability.
I was sad to see Willow go. Willow was so bad it was hilarious. I really enjoyed Willow, but that's partly because I don't really give a damn about Willow. So Star Wars is a different matter. It's a shame, I think, to see. Well, it was always going to be a shame. The decision they made when Disney first acquired the property to retcon the entire expanded universe was just a huge act of self-sabotage. You've got 30 plus years of content, carefully curated, all approved by George Lucas himself, with some brilliant stories included in it, which Disney took over and said, you know what? Yeah, no, we're not going to do any of that. We're going to do our own stuff. And then you think, well, okay, that's a bold decision. You're going to have to justify that by, proving that you can actually create your own stuff that's actually quite good, which they can't do. The Mandalorian is the closest they've got to it, I think. The first season wasn't brilliant by any means, but it was enjoyable enough. The context helped. Obviously, you've come off the back of the sequel trilogy and all of its grand dreams and aspirations and how destructive that was. So to see a character going through small, roughly irrelevant adventures, one-on-one, just one-to-one episodes, self-contained, you can see new bits of the galaxy. It's starting to rebuild something from the ground up and showing us things that we all wanted to see but had never got the chance to see on film. And I think that's one of the many reasons that people really enjoyed the first one. Sorry, give me 2 seconds.
Sure. I'm going to bring Echo Chamberlain into once he gets... Echo Chamberlain is another channel who's absolutely fantastic, underrated, much like Bonebridger. When I bring him on, some of you probably sub to him, but I highly advise you guys sub to both Bonebridger and Echo. They pump out some totally different style content that touches on the same stuff. I mean that in the best way possible. Think of it in the juxtaposition of Platoon and I. I mean, you're talking about an American who's just fucking blunt versus like the most articulate fucking Brit.
I was gonna say Little Platoon is the most articulate YouTuber that I know in our space. There's no one else. He is literally the most articulate.
Yeah, he is. He's fucking fantastic. But I sent Echo, if you are listening, I sent you a StreamYard. So if you click on the link whenever you're ready, I'll bring you right in. In the meantime, these two chats we're dual streaming right now, so I don't know.
Cool.
Whose is where? But Platoon.
Oh, so that's why you're reading off of both of the. Okay.
I have no fucking clue who's what. Our chats are just mushed together here. So, oh shit, Platoon, you're back.
I'm back. Sorry, what did I miss?
Oh, nothing. I was just I was saying
we did the entire
Echo Chamberlain. I sent Echo Chamberlain a link to the StreamYard, so I know he was perusing the chat. So if you are here, Echo, go ahead and come in. Hey,
speak of the devil. Speak of the devil.
Hello, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Oh no, can you guys hear me? I can't hear you.
Oh, very good. You can't.
We can hear you. Yes,
we can hear you.
Take me out of the thing, and I'll see if I get my mic.
Bye.
As requested.
As requested, ejected.
The airlock is always open. It's always open.
Platoon, this one deserves your attention, my friend. This is fucking. Here you go. This is for you.
From Grendel Vivat, bloody hell, for $100. Thank you very much. Happy to see Little Platoon starting a new stream and looking forward to learning more about movies and its content. Thoughts on the Dune sequel later this year? Thank you very much for that. That's very generous. Dune is one of the only films I'm unironically looking forward to. I enjoyed the first one. I'm familiar with the books. I'm aware of the changes that were made, and I'm interested by the changes that were made. They could be problems going forward into the sequel. That very much depends on how they accommodate those changes. So the changes weren't of themselves bad. Everything depends on the payoff for those changes. Were the changes worthwhile to make? But I thought, as a whole, it was a film which took its audience seriously. It was humorless, but I think probably for a good reason. It didn't want to do what Marvel does, for example, and just try and string the audience along with cheap gags and bland entertainment. Visually, I thought it was very impressive. I understand people's problems with its colorscape. It was quite bleak, but then again, you are on Arrakis, and it's a desert planet, so what do you expect? I thought it was visually impressive. I thought the world building was better than most things that you'll have seen really from the last decade worth of films. It took its audience about as seriously, or almost as seriously, I would say, as the Lord of the Rings films did, which isn't to say I think Dune is as good as the Jackson Lord of the Rings films, but it is to say that they didn't sacrifice anything in a bid to get the audience on side. It's not an easy film to watch in a way that it's not an easy book to read. But the fact that it took the audience seriously, it was competently performed, competently written, and set enough up for the future that I was interested to go back to it, makes it a unique film in current times. I'm looking forward to it because I think I might actually enjoy it, as opposed to looking forward to it because I might give it a fun, enjoyable, bad review.
So I should go see the first movie still. Is what
Yes,
I'm hearing
definitely
here.
do that.
Yeah. I still haven't seen it.
Shall we see if Echo Chamberlain can hear us now?
Let us give it a shot.
Can you hear us now, sir?
Can you hear us, sir? Now he's on
You're
mute.
muted.
You are muted, sir.
I'm assuming he can't hear us yet. Do we want to drop him in the back room and then wait to see if he can...
How about now? I'll just go on my usual.
Can you hear us now?
I can hear you.
Ah, good. If you're using a Yeti microphone, there's a button on it, I think, which mutes the sound input. So I'm not sure.
I think
entirely
he's.
sure how that works.
I think it's coming through the computer microphone.
Yeah, is that all
I
right?
think
It probably sounds a little bit crappy if it's just my computer speakers. But
I
if it's okay
I
with you
can't
guys-
understand anything he's saying.
It's a little bit muffled. Sorry, guys. Tell you what, if we put you into
Put me
the
in
back
when
room,
we have a chat. Yeah.
we'll put you into the back room, and then hopefully you'll be able to find a way of doing that. So if we can do...
Yeah, just put him in the green room.
How do we do that?
I think he just. I don't mean it offensively, Echo. I'm just removing him from the stream.
For those of you watching, the back room is a dungeon with some torture racks in it. Is where
Yeah,
they're
but we
sending.
provide
Yes.
gimps for people. Like, it's fine. We make sure everyone's
It's nice.
taken care of. Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes we just turn them into games. We'll see what
Yeah,
happens. But hopefully he'll rejoin us at some point. This is our professional first stream. So he's in the back room again. If you give us a thumbs up if you can hear us, then we'll let you into the stream. But otherwise, I'm going to guess that the answer is no for now.
Yeah. You can also type in the private chat if you can let us know if you hear us.
You can type to him in the private chat and let him know what
right,
we're doing. If I do it, because my little avatar is rigged up to do stuff, if I try and type things, I'll accidentally start blushing or wearing sunglasses again.
Oh my gosh, that's
we're
so
not going to
cool.
do that.
Yeah, your avatar is
Professionalism.
your avatar has come a long way very quickly. I mean, the original one was a little uncanny and creepy, and
yes,
now it's
it
awesome.
certainly was.
Yeah,
Speaking
now it's
though
pretty
of
awesome.
soulless and uncanny things, back to the Mandalorian. I think that's where we were, right?
I think so. Yeah. Getting a little sidetracked. Mandalorian, take it away. I'm gonna listen to you and chime in on something that I'm not a massive fan of.
Yeah, I'm not sure how far into it you got. So yeah, where I left off, I had to take a brief sojourn. The idea of it was, you've got away from the sequel trilogy. It's a small scale, localized thing. Much of what I recommend for the MCU to follow is that you try and tell stories which are localized, which don't have these grand universe-ending stakes, and that was good. I think that's what people liked about The Mandalorian. The problem The Mandalorian had was that it had an interesting premise. It accidentally discovered its popularity. I don't think anyone was expecting it to be as popular as it was. And then they suddenly realized, oh shit, we have to go somewhere with this. And that's the point at which writing kicks in. Now you have to start telling a story. And that is the thing that they have uniformly failed to do. I mean, I think season 2 was even then not brilliant, but better than season 3. Season 3 has been massively disrupted by the fact that they chucked in the first 2 episodes into the Book of Boba Fett, so season 3 is effectively starting midway through. But even then, you're going to try and get the droid back, and then you decide in episode 2 that was an entirely irrelevant side quest. We don't need the droid after all, so we're just going to go to the planet, and if we're just going to go to the planet, then we have to do this. The dialogue doesn't even match the scenes anymore. There's bits where he says to Grogu, there's a bit where he says, I can't fit an R5 unit in my N1 starfighter, even though the thing Grogu lives in is designed for an R5 droid. Then they get the R5 droid in, the R5 droid goes out, and then he says to Grogu, get in your pod, stay safe while we go out and scout the area. And then the next time you see Grogu is just in the cockpit as usual, so he's not even done that. The dialogue doesn't even match the thing anymore. So it's the writing has just gone off a cliff. It was never brilliant, but the problem is it's falling by its own standards, and that's never a good sign for any media.
Go ahead, Bonebridger. Go for it.
I guess the writing being bad is pretty much like standard at Disney right now, it seems like across the board. But what surprised me, those first 3 episodes, specifically the first episode, like if this is your flagship show, if this is supposed to be like the big deal, why not introduce some kind of a threat or introduce some kind of I think you made a good point. They don't have a plan. Or maybe they had to have a plan because this show was successful. They're like, oh, now we need 5, 6, 7, 8 seasons. And it just seems like they don't really have a way of, because a lot of people are like, well, why don't you just bring in like Grand Admiral Thrawn? Why don't you just introduce a character? But these first 3 episodes, other than reviewing it, I would have stopped. And I'm actually a fan of The Mandalorian up until this point. But that first episode was so weak in terms of like, they didn't even do the silly things I thought they would do. I thought they would really lean in and like, just go all out to like have this big budget kind of, it feels low budget, but I know the budget's not low budget. So that's kind of, I'm baffled by this. It feels, but maybe it's just the story and the writing is so weak. It's just, it's boring. Like the show's boring. I don't.
And that could potentially be like the worst offense of a show. Kind of like how I felt about leaving Shazam, where I'm like, yeah, that was competently made, and I couldn't fucking wait for it to be over by the end. And that's kind of how I was feeling when I was watching The Mandalorian. And like even a 30-minute first episode, I was just like, I can't fucking wait till this is over. I can't wait until this is over, which is crazy because I genuinely enjoyed like the first 2 seasons of Mando as a non-massive fan of Star Wars. I would consider myself a normie for Star Wars, and a total normie. And I watched Mando and was just totally fine with it. I was like, sweep me away with that sweet, sweet nostalgia. I could give less of a fuck. And they did it. And I couldn't believe that Mando season 3 came in without any fanfare, really. No one was really hyped about it. There's no real talk about it. And then it certainly lived up to those very low expectations. It didn't subvert shit because everything was kind of boring.
I'm blown away by it. It's like textbook, like marketing, the money, the Disney perspective. I understand why they're releasing at 3 a.m. because I would release this at 3 a.m. too if I didn't want people to see it.
I don't know. As much money as they pay to produce it, I would hope they'd put it out at a reasonable time. But
it does. I mean, it feeds back into the Marvel problem as well. But sticking to Star Wars, just because that's what we're on. It is the problem with taking the audience for a ride for far too long. Like the audience can enjoy season 1 of The Mandalorian because it is something different. Its approach is different. It's not trying to be anything other than it actually is. Season 2 is the point when you need them to start doing something with the characters. You need to give half of them characters because they don't have them. You need to actually start giving the audience some reward for their investment. And season 2... It almost did occasionally. I think the Luke Skywalker reveal, it didn't really make a huge amount of sense plot-wise, but at least it gave us something. But we need more. Stories have to progress. You have to add more. You have to do more. The Mandalorian hasn't done that. And in between the Mandalorian seasons, you've got the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, which was a massive and deserved bomb. It was the most dud of all the dud things. Probably the series with the highest potential. And so therefore the most disappointing because it disappointed the most potential. And then of course you've got the Book of Boba Fett, which was a joke. I mean, the writing in the Book of Boba Fett is hysterically bad. It was so bad that they introduced the first 2 episodes of The Mandalorian in a bit to boost its numbers.
Yeah.
And then you finally get around to Mando season 3, and then people are not waiting in awe, desperately waiting for this Mandalorian season 3 to drop, because there's been no break in Star Wars content. It started, okay, kind of all right with The Mandalorian season 1. It got worse with The Mandalorian season 2. It got worse with Obi-Wan. It got much worse with Boba Fett. And there's not been a year's break between those things. And then you get Mando season 3. So where's the magic gone? It's not an event anymore. It's just, well, it's another day, so it's another Star Wars show. So I suppose we have to keep in touch with that. Yeah, really, really excited for this one. My penis is positively soft. So
I think they killed it with Obi-Wan Kenobi. I think that was the nail in the coffin, the final one.
For me, that's the worst one because of the
Yeah.
expectation.
Oh,
You had-
yeah.
You had everything you needed. Like for Star Wars fans, you had the actors you needed. You had the potential storylines, not the what we got. You had an easy potential storyline in there. I think that
make that a
broke the whole
fucking
thing.
make that a fucking Unforgiven with Clint Eastwood, but with Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke. That
Yes.
fucking awesome potential right there. I compliment superhero movies often where you're just like, hey, stealing from another genre. Well, it works. Like, go ahead and do it because it'll work for you. They had it right there in the palm of their hands, and even a friend of mine, not named Little Platoon, who's he was a huge Star Wars fan. And
don't be silly. I'm your only friend.
Well, I have Bonebridger now, and I live in Nashville. So him and I are
Yeah,
gonna
and there's
split
tons
up.
of people in this back room here, but they don't. They're all hooked up to stuff, so I don't know about them.
But even he was like, they said it's Darth Vader. That's who they're bringing. That's the big gun. If they fuck this up, it's it. That's it. And sure as shit, they did. And they are reaping what they sow. No one gave a fuck about Andor, even if it was high quality. No one gave a fuck about Mandalorian.
It is telling that in the list of things I reeled off, Andor, which is the one that I actually genuinely like, I forgot to mention.
Exactly.
So, yeah,
It
I
doesn't
also
feel
said
like
that-
Star Wars, and that's like a good thing. Like,
It's probably a good thing.
Yeah,
at least not like Disney Star Wars.
No, exactly. Yeah, and well, it was competently written for a start, so it couldn't have been a Disney production. But it was a deceptively intelligent, well written thing, very philosophically grounded, really intelligent show that no one wanted or expected, and got no marketing. It was, I think, paced incorrectly, as a result of which nobody really bothered watching it. But if you'd kicked off the Disney Plus stuff with Andor, you would have had a lower initial score from the audience, but you might have got a more loyal fan base than The Mandalorian attained, because The Mandalorian appeals to people who understandably want to see recognizable Star Wars figures involved in recognizable Star Wars action. But if you're not going to give them that, which The Mandalorian isn't doing anymore, then of course those people will slip away. I will slightly correct myself though, in the sense that I said that the Book of Boba Fett's writing was orders of magnitude worse than anything else. I think that's incorrect though, because you do have the moment in Obi-Wan when Obi-Wan goes down to the planet and Darth Vader follows him down to the planet, and they meet each other on the planet, and Vader says, "Have you come to destroy me?" No, dude, you followed me here. So no, that was special.
Fucking show. I'm still gonna do a super edit of my videos for that.
It deserves it.
Oh,
it deserves
yeah,
all
it
the
does.
treatment.
Like coming up on the 1 year anniversary in 3 months. I think it's a perfect thing to go back, kind of have a little retrospective on the death of Star Wars in this franchise, and thank Obi-Wan Kenobi, the TV show, for putting that final nail in.
Well, that's a question I'd like to tee up for both of you guys, because I know the Drinker put out a video today saying that Star Wars is dead. So far, I've only gone so far as to say that Star Wars is dying. Do both of you think that it is dead? And if you don't think it's dead, what needs to be done to revive it?
Bonebridger, go ahead.
I think that what concerns me is the TV push without the movie plan. I think if they follow through with that, it is dead, because I think that they're going to lose part of what could be great about Star Wars. Maybe again, if they wrote the ship, if like things weren't the way they are at Disney, but maybe it needs to break more. I don't know. The craziest rumor I read, and it's definitely just a rumor, was should Star Wars sell the rights to the movies for someone to make the movies in theaters, Disney still get a cut, kind of the way Sony is with Marvel, with Spider-Man is. And I think that would do a lot of good because someone else might do a better job with movies. But the TV shows, I think, are going to run it into the ground. I mean, this season of Mandalorian, this could do it. I'm shocked at the viewership. I mean, this is going to cost them $100 million easy. Not to mention, I don't know what it'll do to their subscriber count. They lost subscribers last quarter.
Yep, a lot.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not confident that it's, you know.
I don't think it's dead yet. And when Drinker put out his video, I like smacked my head because I was like, motherfucker, I was going to do a Star Wars video like that. But
he's years ahead of us. He's just already on the next.
It's like, God damn it, I'm making a video of that. But I was making a DC and MCU is collapsing series. And then once Mando hit like this, I was like, oh man, Star Wars is kind of in that vein too. So I'm going to do like a 25-30 minute video on it. I don't think it's dead yet. I think what you can do is save it by literally just giving it a fucking break. But they can't afford to because they are not like Netflix where they have a bunch of different IPs and can try different things all the time. They are relying on Marvel and Star Wars. So to even maintain subscribers, they have to produce this content. They put themselves in this box. So yeah, it's going to collapse. They have a chance to save it, and it's not going to happen because the only way to save this shit is to stop fucking making it for a while. Use the Batman template that was already set out. We discussed it earlier in the program. Batman and Robin was terrible. Tank that fucking IP. You wait 8 years. You wait. You wait. You bring someone on who you're careful with who you choose to bring on to give that one big kickstart movie. And that can reignite an audience's trust in you again. You might eat a little bit of the box office, but it probably will do reasonably well enough to break even. Like that's what happened with Batman Begins. It was made for like $150 million. It had a big budget and it broke even. It broke even at the box office. But because of the reception from both fans and audiences, they understood, okay, that means the next movie, we built that trust back. You can build back up an IP, but if you just constantly drive that shit into the ground, there's not going to be any coming back, at least not in like our lifetime until we're like fucking 60 years old.
Disney just won't let up. Like they won't.
They can't.
And I think you're right. They can't. You know, we just saw that new slate. They canceled all their original movies that they were going to try. And then like animation is going to be like Frozen 2, Toy Story 25.2. And I'm just like, they just don't, they can't give it a break. But also, I just don't know if Disney works for streaming. I think the whole streaming thing for Disney was like, oh, Netflix is doing this. We got to get in on this. But you can't compete with them because they're doing it in a way that, and they're the first in the door. But like you said, they can take a year off from Stranger Things and no one notices because Wednesday has 90 million viewers in 1 week.
Exactly.
So it's, I don't know.
There's a gaming analogy as well because the approach Disney has taken has been to say, well, if we buy up all the recognizable IPs, that's what generates subscriber growth. Fundamentally, all you need is recognizable IP. It's why Paramount, the first thing it did was take Star Trek Discovery, which is an abysmal show, but it still thought it was valuable enough to take it off of Netflix and make it exclusive to its own streaming service because Star Trek is a valuable IP. Star Wars is a valuable IP. Apparently Willow is as well. Anyway. Disney has done what Microsoft has done. Microsoft has done something quite similar, I gather, in the gaming sphere. Microsoft bought up a huge number of independent and smaller studios with recognizable titles on the theory that if they own these things, then the content, the IPs that they produce will generate subscriber numbers for Xbox Live or Xbox Plus or whatever they call it these days. Microsoft, however, has not managed to put out very many games. If you don't put out the content that people actually want to watch with those IPs, eventually you get to the point where the name value is no longer enough. At the moment, we're early enough in streaming service economics that just having the IP generates enough subscribers so the model continues. You don't need to produce good shows as long as you're getting subscribers in from the IP. Doesn't matter if someone subscribes to Paramount and says, actually, new Star Trek sucks. As long as they stay subscribed for other reasons, they've done their job. Same with Amazon and Rings of Power. Amazon has the Lord of the Rings, apparently. It doesn't matter that the people don't like the Rings of Power. All that matters is that people have subscribed on the basis that it does. If they stay subscribed for other reasons, the service has done its job. That's all that matters. But you will get to the point where you've run out of diehard fans who will subscribe just to follow content. You will then have to start producing something. And until you do that, you're going to end up in the position that Netflix is increasingly finding itself in. Netflix loses subscribers, not even very many, but investors take flight because investors have been sold effectively the promise of a pyramid scheme. There are always more subscribers, therefore there is always more income, therefore is always more investment, therefore always more subscribers, and so it goes. And the minute you shatter that fake facade is when the model starts collapsing in on itself, because it's effectively built on the too big to fail approach, and that's not going to last them forever. Eventually they will actually have to start producing content that means something, that matters, that's well written, that people want to watch. And I mean, Disney isn't doing that at the moment.
Yeah, look at what their business model is. They're remaking old classics, and their last 10 and 12 years has been buy up the biggest sci-fi and superhero IPs possible. That's their business model. They don't produce anything new anymore. They're like Apple after Steve Jobs died. Like they're not producing anything new. They're just kind of running off of everything else, or running off of other people's ideas. Like, Android came out with this. Well, we'll just wait 2 years, perfect it, and then do it all over again. At least they actually produce good products.
But there's a reason. There's a reason as well that Disney will continually remake Peter Pan, Little Mermaid, all of its, The Lion King, all of its old, and The Jungle Book as well. Way back before most of this was part of pop culture, The Jungle Book got a remake, and there's a reason they're doing that, which is that those stories were good. And what they're effectively banking on is that if we just tell the same story again but update the graphics, people will buy it. That's enough. They don't bother to try and understand what makes The Jungle Book, The Little Mermaid, The Lion King successful to begin with, which is the story. They don't bother with that. They just think reskin, re-release, money. That's fine. People get bored of that after a while.
The person that I was having the conversation with this morning, they said that they would like to go see The Little Mermaid 6 times, whether it's good or bad, to spite, well, people like us. And I'm like,
that'll show me. That's going to put me right in my place.
And I asked him, I was like, what if it sucks? And he said, I don't care. I was like, well, fucking more power to you, man. Like,
he won't make a dent in the margins.
Yeah. Or no, it was The Little Mermaid. I thought I said Peter Pan and Wendy. Yeah, it's Little Mermaid. It's like, fucking, all right, buddy. And I'm like, this is what, if this is the kind of thing that people are relying on, or that company's relying on, I don't think that's a very long-term prospect.
But it's self-defeating, because the reason that person presumably will do that is because they are very keen on seeing, quote-unquote, representation in media. So they want to go and see The Little Mermaid because it agrees with their political ideal of what representation is for and what it's supposed to be meaning. But you're doing yourself an injustice if you do that. If you're saying, all I want to see is more black people, more gay people, more women represented on screen, so I will support whatever black people, women, and gays are represented in, you are denying, really, the mechanics that should lead to good gay stories, black stories, and female stories taken to the screen in the first place. Why would you go and watch The Little Mermaid 6 times just because it has a black female lead, for example, rather than try and find an independent film with a black female lead that's actually good and giving your money to that instead? Because that's the way you actually get new stories which do representation properly. Representation on face value means nothing. The only reason people like the characters that have become pop culture icons is because they are characters to begin with stories that writers have invested in. If you're not going to do that, what's the point? And if you're just going to spend money because, hey, look, Little Mermaid's a black woman now, well, okay, but then you're basically saying to studios that we don't need to write good black female characters because as long as you do the skin deep thing, people will watch them. That's depressing, and it's self-defeating. If you want more representation, seek and search and look for good quality representation. Don't just say skin color matters above all, because that's A, a little bit racist, and B, defeats the audience you're trying to uplift.
It's a weird loyalty to like the big studios, like to just follow the big studio money machine. And I know you guys have probably experienced, like, I get into it sometimes with people that are being loyal to Disney for some weird disconnected reason, I'm like, well, it's not like it's like some small indie production where they're like actually pushing something. Like you're defending $1 billion studio that could care less about you in the grand scheme of things. It's not like you're supporting anything.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Whether or not they're making money is kind of irrelevant because the point of their entire company is to fucking make money. Like they'll
Just
fail
keep
or
on
succeed
going.
at it. But the objective of everything they do is for the dollar. So they don't actually give a shit about you. They're fucking pandering to you. And that's it. That's why they're doing it. They put their fucking finger in their mouth and stuck it in the air. And they're like, oh, the wind's blowing that way. That's where I'm going. Or at least that's what they perceived. Obviously, that's not necessarily paying any dividends right now. But that was their objective. So I just don't understand. I don't know. I can't put myself in those shoes of just being like, I want to be pandered to. Like there's all kinds of like everyone deals with their own problems, right? Everyone has their own troubles. If you had that represented on screen, would you really give a shit that much more? It's just fucking absurd. I use the example of Everything Everywhere All at Once. I've used it since that movie came out, of the fact that like I do not have to literally be a fucking Chinese immigrant to connect with these characters. There's a human element that connects everybody.
Yes.
And if you actually do that, and that's the thing, they didn't like ignore the fact that they were Chinese immigrants in the movie. That was at the forefront because that is their story. But what connects everyone, what made everyone love that movie when they watched it, is the human element that everyone can connect to. That daughter's challenge with her family. You don't have to like be worried about coming out to as gay to your family. It could be anything. Disappointment in your fear of disappointment from your family is like a universal thing that everyone can connect with. So it doesn't fucking matter what's being shown on the screen. Maybe someone can relate to that, anyone watching it. But I think literally anybody can connect with that universal theme. They don't give a shit about that anymore.
X-Men
Disney.
2 unironically did a better coming out story than most quote-unquote gay films do.
Right. Yeah. That was an excellent scene. And it was more universally based, but, you know, with that in the background, of course. That was really well done. Yeah. And that was like 20 years ago.
Shit.
Gosh.
2003.
I wonder, is this just a reflection of culture that has just got into entertainment in a new way, kind of? Because it kind of baffles me that, I guess it doesn't baffle me too much that writing has got to this point, but like, I would think that some writers would still get that you need that human connection element to a degree, or are they just walking this line of, we're going to pander. We're going to have some moments that represent, it's like the in-game moment. Everyone knows the Brie Larson Marvel in-game moment. That moment transported me so far out of the movie, I couldn't function. I was like, what just happened?
I just
like,
stopped.
I was like, this is
I had to reboot.
The Infinity Saga just ended all this whack, and they didn't even try to do it organically. They didn't even try to do it where it was like a one at a time thing where like everyone's just fighting. They had to do the like picture moment. When my audience cheered, I was mortified. Absolutely
Your audience
mortified.
cheered?
They cheered.
Oh no.
They cheered. I could tell you what, you would know what theater I went to too. You would.
I just moved to Nashville not even a year ago. I was all the way up in Maine when I saw that movie. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So there's a real snooty place around there, and they just.
I live in Brentwood,
you will know that audience when the Marvels comes out. You will know that audience because you'll go to that same cinema, and then everyone will cheer.
Well, no, because I said in my Black Panther review, this is fucked up. In my Black Panther review, I mentioned my theater experience, which was at the end of the movie when she breaks Cuck Freeman out of the back of the truck. She's like, "Oh, colonizer in chains." Yeah, but colonizer in chains. I never thought I'd see the day. And some people in my theater were like, "Fucking yeah!" And I'm like, "Bitch, you're sitting in a motherfucking air conditioned theater with your fat ass holding a fucking soda. Like, yeah, okay, shut the fuck up." And I was just like, "This is social engineering gone haywire right now." You know what I mean? Like that's what they fucking put that in there for. And they're getting the result. It just blew my mind.
Well, they are, but I think the encouraging thing is that they're getting less of a result now than they did back then. I mean, the first Black Panther film wasn't a huge amount better than the second, but that
It was better, though.
the culture. Well, yes, but everything back then was better. But it was you could market that film as a cultural moment, which is what they did. They tried the same trick with the second one, with the added alleged allure of Chadwick Boseman's genuinely tragic death, and it didn't anywhere near match the results gained by the first deployment of that trope. So I think it's diminishing returns. They're not able to do that quite so much, because ultimately what people want, yes, is stories of empowerment, but they also want stories first and foremost. Empowerment is nice, but you need a good story to empower people. You can't have empowerment without story, which is what the second Black Panther film basically tried to do, and that's one of the many reasons it wasn't as successful.
I can't speak better than Platoon.
I know, he puts everything so articulate. I was
just like, all right, good night, everybody. Peace.
But no,
on the other hand, it takes me 10 times longer to get to the end of the sentence than it does you guys. So there's conciseness to consider.
Yeah, but when you get there, it sounds really good. Sometimes when I get there, it's just tears or anger, or
I just have mouthy brevity. That's why.
Black Panther 2. That's I kind of built my channel on the bones of Black Panther 2 and Willow, because Black Panther 2 was like, people treated it like it wasn't declining. But like you said, if you look at the box office compared to the first one, Multiverse of Madness even did better financially for a while. Thor was a disaster financially. It was just more that decline going on. I was like, this is still, if you look at the chart, it's still headed down. And I was like, Ant-Man was the most predictable failure I've ever seen, in terms of like, they were marketing it to be Civil War, to be the beginning of Phase 5. But the Marvel decline, it's like you guys were saying, this has been going on for a while. Like, it's post Endgame, I guess, or during it. For me, it was during Endgame, halfway through Endgame.
It's weird because 4 Marvel movies came out in like a 6-month period of time in 2021. So it was Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Eternals, and then Spider-Man. Because they came out so rapidly, and you ended the year on that massive high note of Spider-Man, it kind of made everything kind of seem okay. Like, whatever.
Like, yeah, we're good.
And also because that movie was huge with your 2 biggest characters left, which was Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. And so it kind of gave you the illusion of, okay, the MCU is going to be fine. We got our core characters. I've made this argument before of like, I'll follow your shitty C-list characters as long as you're taking care of my main characters, the ones I really care about. But then it was made very apparent that they weren't going that route whatsoever. They made Doctor Strange a fucking passenger in his own movie.
Oh, gosh.
He isn't even really the lead character. He's only there because they're fucking cynical. They're like, people will go see it if you put Doctor Strange in it, but don't make him the main character. Fuck it. Let's try and make his story arc where he doesn't do shit. And his character arc is that he doesn't do anything, and that's a good thing. It's
that's the modern man. That's what we need, right? That's the
modern man right there, who just lets the woman take over, don't do shit, and then get cucked for it. Oh yeah, he was cucked in that movie too. Fuck.
Oh gosh.
Poor Strange, man.
It's annoying because, I mean, Ant-Man, for example, had a really good example of where you could have done this introduction of a new character properly. So it's a father-daughter relationship. The daughter is inexperienced. She has a lot to learn. He has all the experience. He's saved half the universe. That's pretty big. And also, he's been using this technology far longer than she has. So if you want to introduce a new character, a new female character, a new character of male or female, the best way to do that is that you bring them in under the aegis of the established character. The established character teaches them things, and then they are given their moment to shine at the end. All the lessons they've learned during the course of that film pay off, and the growth is natural. The growth is part of a relationship with the male character or the established character. It pays off the parent-teacher thing, parent-daughter thing. It pays off the teacher-student thing. You can do good character introductions quite simply within the span of a single film, as long as you clearly establish that the younger new character has something to learn from the older established one. Ant-Man almost did this. It's the closest it's got since Hawkeye. I never thought I'd praise Hawkeye as the best MCU Phase 4 thing. It is, because at least they understood this. what you needed to do with Cassie Lang and Ant-Man is Cassie has got her hands on this suit. She's fairly inexperienced. She doesn't really know how to fight. Scott needs to teach her stuff. When they go down to this new realm, it's a brand new experience, threats of the scale she's never faced before. So he needs to teach her how to survive in this realm. And they almost did it. They had one scene where she tries to do a move, it doesn't quite work, and he says, no, it's all about timing. And then they turn it into a joke, and then they move on, and then she's as good as she was at the beginning. And that's not the proper establishment for any new character. It's not a uniquely female character thing. It's only female in the sense that most new characters they're introducing are female, but the same rules apply to men. When they introduced Peter Parker was introduced under the aegis of Tony Stark. Tony Stark teaches Peter Parker what it means to be an Avenger. He's the person that Peter wants to try and impress. In the course of trying to impress him, he fails. He goes above and beyond his station. He fucks up badly, and he has to be told off. He has to be put down. And then he has to realize within himself that it's not about being this ultra mega rich celebrity. It's about being true to yourself. It's about being a good, normal, honest human being. He has to overcome his own internal doubts and weaknesses, and Tony Stark effectively shows him how to do that. And then he becomes a mainline Avenger. That's a good arc for a character. It's not the best arc, but it's infinitely better than anything we're getting at the moment. But at the moment, you're trying to introduce female characters at the same station as Peter Parker, but without any of that work. You introduce them and they are automatically, already, the brilliant genius tech wizard. Riri Williams can make an Iron Man suit in a garage for no reason, with no resources, even though, yeah, okay, fine. America Chavez doesn't really have anything to learn. She's a MacGuffin. Cassie Lang has nothing to learn except that one lesson. It's disappointing, and it's, again, going back to the point about sort of failing representation by championing representation. The problem with that is that you are creating bad female characters by doing this. If you want good female characters, I want good female characters. Black Widow was a really good character until she got her own film. But if you want that, you have to do the work, and you can't assume that because they're a female character, they don't need to go through the growth levels that all the male characters had to go through. They're not doing that, and so their characters suck. And then people say, well, you only hate on the female characters. No, actually, there are a few that I like. But the problem is, all the characters you're introducing in this way happen to be female. Mm-hmm. You're doing women an injustice yourselves. It's not the audience criticizing you who is sexist. It's you by assuming that women and female characters don't need to go on the same arc as everybody else does.
No, think of it this way. If you switched Spider-Man, if Peter Parker and Iron Man's relationship that happened throughout their 4 or 5 movies together happened now, and so Spider-Man was a female, what would have happened? Spider-Man would have, or Spider-Woman would have swung in and saved the day. It would, if it was the Doctor Strange arc, but switched. Could you imagine Spider-Man being the one who defeated Thanos and Iron Man stepped back and his arc was that he allowed Spider-Woman to do it instead of him? When you talk about the role reversals here, as far as gender goes, you can understand like, oh, that it doesn't matter what the gender of that person was. That works as a story. That works as a character arc. And they're not doing it here. Like, this is fucking, writing is hard. Writing a screenplay is very hard, but all the same, there's a reason why you can go to school for that stuff. There's a formula to certain things. There's a reason why you can come out of a movie and just be like, yeah, that was competently made. No, it wasn't like the greatest thing ever, but there is a formula to writing. And when you subvert that, and just make the what should be the primary character who's learning the lesson into the lead, it fundamentally fucks up everything, just as Platoon much more articulately put it. It's the worst possible way to introduce a character. It makes them entirely unlikable. I do not understand why they think why they thought it would work.
It's like they want the result, and either they don't know how to get there or they don't want to take the time to earn it to get there.
Yeah, it's like the Loki thing where you got to hurry up and get there.
You got to hurry up and get to the end. And then I think about the Marvels. How are they even going to function? Because all they have are their characters that they're trying to do this with. So it's like you said, what do you do when you have a movie of just those characters? That's why I think it's probably such a struggle for them to figure out what to do, because they've been doing this. And now they've created a movie where they completely remove the people they were going to use to do, like, there's no Doctor Strange in this movie. There's no Doctor Strange to kind of just push over in the corner and say, you know, let me do this kind of thing. So what are you going to have, a movie of all MacGuffins? Like, is it going to be everyone's just awesome and there's no reason why? It's like you don't have to learn anything. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to learn from someone that's been there. There's no mentorship. I don't know how that movie, like, I don't know how they do it in their paradox world of what they've created. They've created the boundaries of their storytelling. And then they're like, oh, let's just do a movie with just them.
I don't know. It's fucking the current model of writing these characters is just fucking outrageous. It fundamentally goes against everything that you're supposed to do. I'm not a brilliant writer by any stretch, but I've certainly started paying my dues on it. I try and put my money where my mouth is, and I understand how difficult it is. But all the same, this is just, if I wouldn't do it, and I am not getting paid millions of dollars, I don't know why the fuck they're doing it.
Yeah, that's my argument.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite comments to receive is, well, why don't you do a better film?
Give me the money.
Give me the $100 million. I will do you a better job.
Yep.
It's not hard to do.
Are we gonna have time to do like a super chat catch up video, or do you want to try and do those during the stream?
I reckon we can do those now, and we can wrap up at like the 3-hour mark, if that makes sense.
I actually got to run, so I might leave y'all to that. But thank you all.
Before you go, do you want to tell everyone about your channel, what you're doing, what's coming up?
Yes, it's 24/7 live streams of me talking about how great Willow is. It's the Bonebridger. You totally want to come join that. No, I appreciate you guys having on everything, and no, it's been great. If you like, me just showing nothing but love for Captain Marvel, you'll be happy there. I won't insult you. I won't make you feel bad at all. I won't threaten to build a bridge out of your bones. That's not why my name's like that, but it could happen.
What's your next thing you're working on?
So I'd hate to do this, but I think my next thing, going off the theme of what we're all doing after the Critical Drinker does a massive one, but I think I'm going to explore the Star Wars thing of what could they do.
Mm-hmm.
So like what could give us a movie trilogy that could work? Like what story could they do? What could they do? I fear that if they do it, they're just going to take Grogu and make him a part of that, or go in the future. But I'm going to try to explore that. Like, would a Knights of the Old Republic ever work? Would any of that ever work? Kind of. I don't know. I'm reviewing The Mandalorian right now, and it just makes my brain hurt. So I guess I'll keep doing that.
Right on, man.
All right, guys.
great.
Well, I appreciate you all.
No, thank you
thanks for coming
us. It's
on.
great to meet you.
Yeah, you too. All right, boys. I'll see you later.
See you soon.
See you later. All right. Let's get through some super chats. Holy shit, this is from almost 2 hours ago. Sorry. Stu Dent for New Zealand 349. Spawn was the first black-led Marvel superhero. I think that's a joke, because that's definitely not true. But no, thanks for the super chat, man. Spawn is an Image Comics character, and the first, I actually think the first Marvel superhero that was black that led his own film was Blade. Next up, can you read that one?
I think I've done this one. Actually.
Oh, is this one that we already did?
Yeah,
Oh,
I've
my
done
bad.
this one.
Spectre Von Baron for $5. You need someone to be an anchor to keep the ship from just getting pulled out into the middle of the ocean. I agree. I think this is in reference to
Kevin Feige.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
good sir.
I know. Yeah, I completely agree with that one. For reasons previously stated.
Yes, sir. You read that name.
Oh, thank you so much. From Mr. Taco Bout It. $4.99. All the recent media failures is audiences waking up to mediocrity and really bad marketing, and other non-CBM and Star Wars movies doing well makes me smile. SW, I think that's Star Wars. No, it can't be. Doing well. What's CBM? I'm not familiar with the
Comic book
acronyms, I'm
movies.
afraid.
I think it's
Oh.
other non-comic book movies and Star Wars movies doing well. Makes me smile.
Then again, if audiences waking up to mediocrity was a phenomenon, then the most recent Avatar film would not have breached $2 billion. So
That's true.
it's a nice idea, but I think we've got a way left to go.
Are we just jaded with special effects to say, or is it just me? To quote Mr. Brown, is it me? Is it just me that I didn't really find Avatar's special effects to be that far beyond what I don't know, like Avengers Endgame had, or anything like that? Like,
There was
yes, it's
some.
visually impressive, but
There were some, I think it suffered for lack of contrast, so there were some genuinely impressive moments visually, and it did push the boundaries in terms of filming underwater and combining CGI and underwater filming. That's all technically fantastic, and it will aid cinematography going forward. The film itself suffered for lack of contrast, because if everything looks like that, then what's remarkable about it? But it fundamentally suffers because you cannot polish a turd. It might look really pretty, but it is still a turd underneath.
it is still a turd. Spectre Von Baron for $5. That is technically a long-running thing with Disney. While he was alive, the only animated movie that wasn't a flop for Walt Disney was Snow White. Oh, this says dating back to earlier in the convo when I was talking about, like, are they accepting flops for future dividends? That's interesting. I didn't know that. I wonder, like, how big of a financial flop those were back in the day. Like, if you're adjusting for inflation, like, what kind of loss are we talking?
I'm guessing much smaller. The production costs
It's
in
got to be.
hand-drawn animated thing were not insignificant, but compared to the dollar value of modern movie studios, with the huge teams they have directing them, composing the CGI, all the animators, all the actors, voice actors, dubbers, international markets, the entire, if you go to the end of any film and just go through the credits now, it takes about 10 minutes to get through them all. That was not the case back when Disney was doing animated only.
Right. So, when I see a movie, I build in 10 minutes for credits now.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Fucking crazy. Thank you very much, sir. Let's see. Lorfsor for 22 euros. It's euros, right? 22 pounds.
Yeah.
So it's that what you chaps say?
Well, it's not pounds, but it's Monopoly money. But yes.
Monopoly money. Oh, fair enough. Don't you think constraints of a universe makes writing the story more creative rather than the other way around? Just writing whatever story you like is not by definition creative.
Yes.
Absolutely. I can actually relate this one to my favorite band and kind of how I go about writing my own stories and my own music too. The simpler, the better, because you have to get more creative with the limitations you're in. Like it pushes you to your limits and it makes things way more fun. I feel like I produce when I have too many things, like if I'm writing music and I have way too much access to anything and everything, I feel more stunted. I like sitting down with just a drum machine and my guitar and a distortion pedal and just seeing what I can make rather than my guitar and then like anything in the world on a computer program. I much prefer the simplicity of things because it makes me better.
But constraints means rules, basically. And when you're writing any work of narrative fiction, it's the problem with the MCU today versus the MCU before. The multiverse is unconstrained. You can make up the rules as you go along. The absence of rules means that you cannot understand the stakes, because the stakes will change depending on who is writing the rules in any given entry. And they will change by the next film, because it's a multiverse. You can have as many rules as you want. Constraints are the rules, and rules establish stakes. If you want people to actually invest in characters, if you want them to invest in storylines, if you want them to understand what failure looks like and what success looks like, you need them to attach themselves to the rules of that universe. And if you're not doing that, which modern Marvel doesn't, and even Star Wars doesn't really anymore, then why are we investing in this to begin with? We don't understand what failure means. There's no consequence to death. In the MCU, Wanda can die in one film, but she'll be back in a later one, so why should we care? So constraints are good. Constraints on writing are very good. Always have in mind to the rules of the world you're writing.
It'd be nice to have some fucking stakes.
Yes.
It would just be nice.
and tasty.
And yes. Sparks 7907 for I'm gonna call this a California $11. This one is for you, sir. You can read your super chat.
From Sparks 7907. Platoon, by chance, could you do a Let's Play of Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2? Talk about its spin on Star Wars. You talking about Kreia would be interesting, not to mention the rest of it. That's a really fun idea. I've been planning on doing Jedi Fallen Order because the sequel comes out in April, the end of April. So in April, I will probably be doing Fallen Order. But Knights of the Old Republic would be a really, really fun Let's Play. I've not played those in a long time, but they are brilliantly written. And some of the best expanded universe stuff you'll find in any medium. So yeah, I'm not opposed to that. So it might be after Fallen Order, but I'll try and get around to it.
Hide current comment. Oh, look, this is for you, sir. You got a new YouTube member because I don't have any memberships up.
I have a feeling that JMac has gifted memberships to a few people in the chat, and if I'm right, thank you very much, JMac. That's very generous of you.
What a gentleman. More from Spectre Von Baron for $5. Don't you realize sacrificing your life for the sake of others is part of the patriarchal supremacy? Yes.
Patriarchy is sacrificing yourself for others. Matriarchy is sacrificing others for yourself.
Fuck. Tobias Gregory for $5. Thank you, sir. Rose Tico literally kamikazes herself into Finn.
Yeah, except that kamikaze usually results in death. So basically, she couldn't even kill herself properly, which is fitting for Rose Tico. Petrus I'm sorry, guys.
Larides,
I think.
Larides. For an I'll say an American $10.
Australian. I think
it's Australian. Is it Australian? The Little Platoon, when I saw those horses riding across that Star Destroyer in the preview, I was seriously reminded of my LSD trips during my Nimbin days.
But you could be high as hell on LSD, but you would still know that the answer to horses riding across your spaceship is to tilt the ship. So even while high, you are better strategist than the Galactic Empire. Well
done. I'm letting you do this one too.
Oh God, Mr. Taco about it. For $5. Star Wars films cancelled. Feige's, Patty's, Ryan's, D&D. That's the Game of Thrones guys, and more. Trevorrow and Lord and Miller fired. It goes on and on. Star Wars is a disaster. I can't disagree with that.
This is fuck. The chat goes so fast. Where is it? This is a hilarious comment. I just have to show this one. I'll leave that one there. Leave it alone. Moving on. Let's see. Hyperion 9997 for a Canadian. Is it Canadian? I like California. Little Platoon, they love your work.
Thank you.
Vinyl Morpheus for $9.99. Thanks. The first season of The Mandalorian was a promising start. Second season was 8 episodes, and 5 of which were commercials for upcoming Star Wars products. I'm not paying to watch commercials. That's fair enough. I completely understand that point of view. I can already hear Mr. Brown in the background saying, "Moving along, come on, hurry up."
You need to work on your Leeds accent, but yes.
I'll get to it. When I do a British accent, it kind of is pretty generic. You guys have all the little subtle differences like we do over here. Sophia Michelle for $4.99. Thoughts on the upcoming animated movies from Disney like Elementals and DreamWorks? Mario and the Kraken one.
The only Mario I'm aware of is the Mario Brothers film, but I'm not sure about the rest.
Yeah, is it that Nintendo has DreamWorks making the movie. Is DreamWorks the one that released the Pokemon movie? Must be the case.
Detective Pikachu. I have no idea. I guess so.
That is a movie that's Detective Pikachu. I liked it. Terrible
I've
acting.
not seen it yet, but I should.
Terrible acting, but I still liked it. I haven't even heard of Elementals or the Kraken movie. No idea. Sorry. RRTNZ, our guy. RRTNZ for a New Zealand 11. Congratulations on your new joint venture. I'm at work, so I'll tune in later. I challenge you both to review Dodgeball, a 2004 comedy much smarter than it appears. Dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge. You fucking know it, RR. I know this movie very well. This is a brilliant comedy. I remember skipping class so I could go to the theaters and watch it with all my friends. That was a hell of a good movie. It is so good. Have you seen that one, Platoon?
I think I've seen bits of it, but not all of it. It struck me as not my thing, so I avoided it, but maybe I'll have to rewatch.
It's one of those forever memeable movies. There's so many good quotes. You have probably seen clips of it because you've probably seen them memes so often. Just one of those brilliant comedies. Steve 89AK for a $1.99 super sticker. Thank you, sir. Mr. Silver for $5. Thank you. Help. I got caught in my own zipper again. That sucks. Are you paying us $5 to help you? Let's see. Jonathan Frost. Platoon will be right back again, folks. Jonathan Frost for $10. Thank you. I keep telling the Sparkles that as a handicapped person, I don't need to see a handicapped hero on screen to connect to a hero, and they just simply don't get it. What's funny is they had to do representation in the comic books recently with a handicapped Spider-Man. Spider-Man swinging around on crutches, which makes me giggle because like we already have handicap representation. One of the most famous comic book characters of all time is Professor X, who's in a fucking wheelchair. Daredevil, another incredibly popular, worthwhile superhero that everyone knows and enjoys, has a disability. He's blind. But let's all pretend like that character in the Eternals was somehow fucking the first disabled superhero ever, the one that's bland, no one gives a shit, and doesn't she like fucking die at the end? Taserman 17 for $5. Nate Moore should be next. No more Rick and Morty writers. Use Secret Wars to reboot franchise. Recast everyone. Trust is still broken. Fair enough. I'm there with you.
I have not ever seen Rick and Morty. I've seen a bit of one episode, and I keep being told that I need to watch the rest of it. But
I've seen probably a handful of episodes, and maybe even the first full season. I thought it was pretty funny, but I guess I didn't really get the hype. I thought it was good. Maybe it's just one of those things where it was hyped up so much, and if you're late to the party, you're just like, yeah, that was fine. The whole Pickle Rick thing. That whole thing became so huge that by the time I watched the episode, I didn't find it funny whatsoever. Which is actually a criticism I've gotten before, which is like, this guy looks like he probably loves that Pickle Rick episode. I don't.
I don't even know what that means. I've had that comment though, and also
have
the
you
Ant-Man
really?
video. My Ant-Man video, I've got loads of people saying, "Oh, this copied X and such from Rick and Morty." And I've had so many of those comments that I looked it up, and yeah, lo and behold, one of the writers for Rick and Morty is involved with Ant-Man, so that might be why.
Yeah, and I think that's happened more than once since they started doing the multiverse thing. I've heard that criticism a lot. Like that's what the multiverse is doing. Just Marvel's just copying fucking Rick and Morty. Pooty Evans for $4.99. Thank you, sir. You don't have to identify as a toaster, lamp, blanket, or vacuum to love and relate to the brave little toaster. Cinema sure is great. Hey, man, that's a fucking good point. I imagine that came in. Is that 7:40? Probably came in when I was ranting about everything, everywhere, all at once. I would imagine. Thank you very much, sir. Shit, we are at 2:58. You wanted to wrap it up at 3 hours? pretty fucking close.
We can do. I don't know how many we've got left to go.
I think that is all the super chats, unless I missed one. I am actually pretty sure that. Oh yes, Late to Culture sent a super chat in. Who's my girlfriend in the next room? Most recent truly original Disney movie.
Ooh, that's a good question.
Should I yell to her? Do you have an opinion? Because I don't know. I don't think so.
Most recent truly original Disney movie. Oh no, I could off the top of my head I couldn't name one.
I couldn't either. I really can't.
I mean, are we counting? Does Disney own
Does
Pixar?
Pixar? Yeah, I was going to say, does Pixar count?
Pixar does not count.
Okay.
I heard that.
Pixar does not count. Do you know?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't know.
Most recent truly original Disney film that isn't Pixar. You're basically going back to.
Jeez.
Oh, goodness.
What was that? That animated movie that bombed in the early 2000s where it had Roseanne Barr voicing a cow.
That could
Exactly.
be anything. I have no idea.
But it was like their last original movie. It was like the death knell of truly animated, like hand animated movies.
I know chat's coming in strong with both Moana and Mulan. I'd be prepared to go with either of those. I don't think I've seen Moana though.
I haven't either. And if
Was
we're
Lilo and Stitch Disney? I think it was.
yeah, Lilo and Stitch was Disney.
Yeah.
And that wasn't Pixar because it was actually hand animated. So I suppose that. Shit, that was
Treasure Planet was Treasure Planet one.
Treasure Planet was.
It's not strictly speaking truly original because it's Treasure Island, but in space. But it's still an original Disney production.
Right. I had another super chat here too that I didn't click on. My bad, but I see it. From Filmable for $2. Thank you. Best thing from Star Wars recently is Fallen Order, which I haven't.
Yeah,
I haven't
I'd
checked
agree
that
with
out.
that. Yes, it's a good game. Well, yeah, it's okay. I think it's a bit like The Mandalorian in the sense that if you evaluate it without reference to everything around it, it's not brilliant. It's just functional. It does a good job. But that's where the bar is set now. So if you do a barely passable job telling a story in Star Wars, you are brilliant. And so I enjoyed Fallen Order. I thought the gameplay was a bit repetitive, but it quite clearly did like what it was trying to do. It liked the universe it was set in. It didn't hate the fans. There were some problems with it, I think, in terms of story, but it understood the power of iconography. It understood the use of characters like Darth Vader. It didn't overuse them. Cal Kestis is probably the only original good new Star Wars hero to have come out in any given amount of time. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't say it was brilliant, but I would say it was good enough.
And someone did answer my question of the Roseanne Barr voicing a cow thing. Is Home on the Range. So thank you for that.
Take your word for that.
It was. I remember. I actually went to the theater and saw that. I can't believe I did. Shit, I think we're all out of super chats unless I missed any. I don't
if we did miss any, we will roll them up into the next video we do.
So we will figure this out.
There is a way of tracking them in the back end, and I can't remember how to do that, but there is a way of doing that. So we'll go through and make sure if we have missed you today, apologies, but we'll find a way of including you in the next one.
Yes, this is our first one, and I mean, we have done streams on my channel together, but holy shit, this has been far and away a little more flawless than those were. That was.
I only had one family member almost die during this stream, so it's all good.
God. I was when you said that, I could not believe it. I was like, this show is never supposed to happen. It's just not.
Apparently, it was a false alarm, so it's all fine.
Oh, well, that's good
apologies for the absence earlier, but I'm going to trust that you held the fort well enough.
I did. I was talking with the chat, so all was good. If I don't know, I'm good, or we can hang on. Whatever you want to do, Platoon.
I think we'll be back. We'll try and do these same time every week, I guess. So
yeah, that would be a plan.
Yeah, we'll be back at 10 p.m. my time and whatever it is in fake time over there next Monday.
It is It's a 5-hour difference. So it was 5 p.m. my time.
Because your
when we
clocks
started.
have changed.
Yep.
So it's
we
4
went,
now.
Yep. Well, no,
Yes.
no. It's 5 now because it was 10 when you started, right? Your time?
Yes.
And it was 5 my time. That's a 5-hour difference.
Oh.
We-
Okay,
you
I
were
tweeted at
6
the wrong
hours.
time.
Right. You were 6 hours ahead.
Oh, is it
and now-
normally
now you're
6 and
only
now it's
5.
5? Okay. I think we figured out how clocks work.
Yep. Yeah. We got it. Hooray. And also, yeah, please help us name this channel too, or name the show. Comment. If you haven't commented in the live chat, just comment on the video if anyone clicks on it and hears me saying this. That would be greatly appreciated. The best show in the universe, though. It's not too shabby.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not a bad fallback position, is it? So we can use
It's
that.
not too bad, especially with the probably, which is like a nice little scapegoat if we need to. So it's all
it's
good.
modest.
Yeah. So we will be back next week at the same time. Any topics or anything, I'm open with that too. So comment, and we will return. I think this went relatively well.
Yeah. We'll see you next week, folks.
We'll see you next week, everybody. Bye.
Bye.